Chapter 69. At the border of the land of earth and the land of grass. 3 generations. Inoki looked at the information in his hand and said, "So, the commander of the Mai Shinobi army that is confronting us is Danzo?" Yellow Soil, who was standing on the side, replied, "Well, according to the information collected by the intelligence team, the commander of the Mai Shinobi army is Danzo." The sudden gathering of the rock village forced the Mai Shinobi army to make corresponding arrangements. Among the 3 members of the Mai Shinobi advisor group, Danzo was assigned by 3 generations Naruto to the rock village. Zhuan Xiao-chun personally went to the Sand Crypsis to discuss the alliance, and Mitokiman Hamura was responsible for the eastern coastline of the Land of Fire to guard against the Mist Village's surprise attack. These pieces of information are difficult to conceal, so the Rock Village's intelligence department intercepted them immediately. After pondering for a moment, 3 generations Tsuchikage-sama asked again, "What about 3 generations Naruto?" Yellow Soil shook his head. "There is no accurate information yet, but it is said that he is still in my village. Rijan is really patient." 3 generations Tsuchikage-sama smiled, then seemed to remember something and asked, "By the way, did you find the Mai Shinobi who killed Iwamoto?" Iwamoto, as the captain of one of the few remaining beheading units of the Rock Village, was one of the few elite jonin in the Rock Village. His death naturally made Tsuchikage-sama very sad and angry. According to the information sent by the spy in the Land of Demons, it was my Umbu Team 11 who killed Iwamoto. 3 generations Tsuchikage-sama frowned. My Umbu? No matter which village, the identity of the Umbu is a secret, so it is not easy to find out the specific information of Konoha Umbu Team 11, even if it is one of the 5 great shinobi villages of Rock Village. Did this Umbu Team 11 appear on the battlefield? Yellow Soil seemed to have collected the relevant information and replied, "No." The battle between Mai and Cloud Village attracted the attention of almost all the villages in the shinobi world, and among them, Rock Village is undoubtedly the most concerned one. Therefore, at the beginning of the battle, Rock Village sent a large number of ninjas who are good at earth release techniques to infiltrate the Land of Fire, and as independent observers, they obtained a lot of first-hand information on the battlefield. From the information, Mai undoubtedly suffered a big loss this time. Several lines of defense placed in the front were all easily broken by Cloud Village. Whether it was the loss of materials or the loss of personnel, it was shocking. There was even a rumor that the Fire Nation's daimyo was furious. Tsuchikage smiled and said, "If Kumo continues to attack fiercely, it won't take more than a few weeks for them to reach Konoha's village." 3 generations Tsuchikage-sama was very happy to see his old opponent in such a difficult situation. More importantly, this battle completely removed the tiger skin on Mai's body, making it clear to everyone that Mai is no longer the invincible existence that can suppress the entire shinobi world. Yellow Soil was not as optimistic as 3 generations Tsuchikage-sama. He shook his head and said, "After Jiraiya arrived, Mai's situation on the battlefield was much better, and Cloud Village's offensive has been temporarily contained. So far, no one knows why Jiraiya arrived on the battlefield a full week later than expected, but in any case, his arrival successfully contained Cloud Village's offensive." After thinking for a while, Tsuchikage said, "Konoha's reaction this time is a bit strange. It is obvious that the combat power on the battlefield is insufficient, but the Uchiha police force is nowhere to be seen on the battlefield, and the Umbu Team 11 is also nowhere to be seen. There must be a problem here. Send someone to investigate. I want to know why." "Yes, I will arrange it right away." Land of Fire, Cloud Village Camp. After receiving the news from the rear, the 2 Jinchuriki and Cloud Ninja looked at each other in blank dismay. The content of the message was not much, only 4 words. "Halt the attack." Chilabai scratched his head and asked the few people around him, "Why did the village send such an order?" Cloud Ninja Ida shook his head and said, "This doesn't make sense at all. We have already destroyed Mai's front line of defense. If we stop the attack at this time, then our previous efforts will be in vain. Yujito-ni said, "Did something happen in the village?" Chilabai and Ida immediately agreed with Yujito-ni's speculation, because this is the only reason why Liang, who has always been tough, would send such an absurd order to the front line. "My shinobi camp, Cloud Ninja Camp." Shikaku walked into the command center and said to the people inside, "The Cloud Village on the opposite side seems to have stopped attacking." Hyuga Richa, who was standing on the side, immediately frowned and said, "They obviously have the upper hand, why did they suddenly stop attacking?" Jiraiya, who knows more, said at this time, "Maybe the old man's strategy worked." After saying that, he briefly mentioned the matter of 3 generations Naruto's arrangement of the Umbu to raid the border warehouse of the Land of Lightning. When everyone heard this, they all sighed. This kind of mission of sneaking into the enemy's territory and raiding important facilities is extremely dangerous even if the target is a small shinobi village other than the 5 great shinobi villages, not to mention that the target this time is Cloud Village, whose strength is not inferior to Mai, so in everyone's opinion, even if the mission is completed, the Umbu who carried out the mission will probably die. Land of Hot Water. Hyojin, who was alone by the lake, took off the black goggles on his head. The clear lake water reflected his pure white eyes in his eye socket. Kuroto observed the surface of the lake and found that it was indeed a Byakugan, exactly the same as his own Byakugan before injecting the genetic serum. After confirming again and again, Kuroto slowly closed his eyes, infused the chakra into his eyes, and then suddenly opened his eyes. In an instant, his eyes flashed with a sapphire blue light, as if there were stars in his eyes. The world in his field of vision became much clearer, even the lines on the trunks of the trees in the distance were clearly visible. "Oh, so it can be done like this." Hyojin chuckled and breathed a sigh of relief. This encounter has been a blessing in disguise for Kuroto to figure out how to activate and deactivate the Tenseigan. After several attempts and the final confirmation just now, Kuroto discovered that the Tenseigan can be temporarily deactivated, just like how the Uchiha clan can deactivate the Sharingan. And he was surprised to find that once the Tenseigan is closed, the caged bird on his head will work again. Chapter 70. Because he can freely activate and deactivate the Tenseigan, he naturally doesn't need to wear the black goggles anymore. After all, wearing them has a great impact on one's field of vision, especially at night. The black goggles will seriously interfere with Hyojin's vision, reducing his insight. After putting the black goggles into the ninja bag around his waist, Hyojin got up and returned to the small cave where Team 11 was hiding. As soon as he saw Hyojin, Guy, who was exercising outside the cave, smiled and said, "Hee hee, you look strange without the goggles." Hyojin looked at Guy from head to toe and asked, "Are you all right?" Guy immediately gave Hyojin a thumbs up, and at the same time revealed a row of big teeth, and said with a smile, "Don't worry, I'm Mai's dark blue beast. Such a small injury, I don't care about it at all." Guy's physical resilience is really extraordinary. If an ordinary person exercises at this intensity, their body may not be able to withstand it for a long time, but he exercises every day as if nothing happened. This time, his injury is not light, but after a few days of rest, he can jump again. After entering the cave, Hyojin found Jishui and Kakashi chatting in a low voice. Hyojin asked casually, "What are you talking about?" Jishui glanced at Kakashi, and seeing Kakashi nodding, she said to Hyojin in a strange tone, "Kakashi-senpai awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan." Hyojin looked at Kakashi and asked, "Did he awaken it after the battle in the valley?" Kakashi, who is still a little weak, shook his head and said, "I don't know." Hyojin is not surprised that Kakashi awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, because in his impression, it seems to be a natural thing. Now, Hyojin can't remember when Obsidian awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, but he knows that as long as Obsidian awakens the Manjikyu Sharingan, then considering the resonance of the two Sharingan, as long as Kakashi is slightly stimulated, it is possible for him to awaken the Manjikyu Sharingan at any time. What's more, Kakashi has received a lot of stimulation. Putting aside the decisive battle in the valley, just the death of Lin and the Yondaime was enough to deal an indescribable mental blow to him. Therefore, Kakashi's Manjikyu Sharingan may have already awakened before, and the battle in the valley just accidentally let him master the method of awakening it. Seeing that Kakashi is still in a half-dead state, Hyojin didn't ask much. He doesn't want to show that he is very interested in the Manjikyu Sharingan, or that he is very familiar with it, because that will attract a lot of unnecessary trouble and suspicion. After all, the only people who are interested in the Manjikyu Sharingan right now are Danzo in the village, and Orochimaru outside the village. And Obsidian, who is hiding behind the scenes, is also thinking about destroying the Uchiha clan and Mai. None of these people are easy to deal with. If they target him, although Hyojin is not afraid of them, it will still be troublesome. Jishui didn't say anything more. In fact, Jishui is still a little confused at the moment. He never thought that a non-Uchiha clansman with a Sharingan transplant can actually awaken the Manjikyu Sharingan of the Uchiha clan. In his opinion, this is simply the biggest and strongest ridicule to the proud Uchiha clan. Countless Uchiha clansmen who are touted as geniuses have not been able to awaken the Manjikyu Sharingan. Even now, in Jishui's knowledge, he is the only one in the entire Uchiha clan who has awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan. He is even worried because he has awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, fearing that this too powerful power will bring bad luck to the clan and the village. He carefully guards this power that represents the pride of the Uchiha clan, but a person who is not Uchiha clansman has inexplicably obtained all this. This feeling of being ridiculed is particularly strong for him. Fortunately, Jishui's pride has just been torn to pieces by Hyojin not long ago, and in his heart, the proud Uchiha clan has been completely defeated in the hands of the Hyuga clan. Because no matter from what aspect, the power of the Manjikyu Sharingan can't be compared with the Tenseigan chakra mode that can erase a valley in the blink of an eye, so in his heart, Uchiha Sharingan has been completely defeated. After being defeated once, being defeated for the second time seems to be a little easier to accept. At least Kakashi is the son of my white fan, who has killed so many shinobi villages that the other shinobi villages are terrified of. Neither Hyojin nor Kakashi are aware of Jishui's complex psychological activities. Kakashi is still immersed in his own mental world. His heart is far from being as cold as he appears on the outside, and the indifference on his face is often just to cover up his wounded heart. Hyojin, on the other hand, pondered over what happened in the past few days. The battle in the valley can be described as a narrow escape from death. This battle made him understand a truth. Even if you have a trump card in your hand, you must be cautious, otherwise, you may lose your life inexplicably before you can even use your trump card. This is the case this time. Although he has the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets in his hand, and he can break out of the encirclement by using magnetic release at any time, but a moment of negligence almost caused him to be captured alive by the Kumo ninjas before he could even use the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets. It must be clear that this is the shinobi world, a place where even Madara of the Jubi's Jinchuriki can be killed in seconds. Of course, Hyojin also gained a lot from this battle. The biggest harvest is undoubtedly the technique to enter the Tenseigan chakra mode from the giant Tenseigan on the moon, as well as the method to use the golden wheel reincarnation explosion and silver wheel reincarnation explosion from the Tenseigan on the moon. The moment he entered the Tenseigan chakra mode, he even felt that he was a god, and all the enemies could be easily crushed by him as long as he raised his hand. This kind of feeling made him incomparably carefree. It's a pity that the Otsutsuki last descendants on the moon reacted too quickly, so he did not have more opportunities to use the free chakra of the giant Tenseigan to familiarize himself with the Tenseigan chakra mode. In fact, after a few days of rest, The chakra in Hyojin's body has recovered by 70% to 80%. Based on the previous battle in the valley, the consumption of the Tenseigan chakra mode is estimated to be enough for him to enter the Tenseigan chakra mode. Chapter 71. After a short rest, the 4 people of Class 11 recovered a little bit of their strength. As for what they should do next, it became an urgent problem in front of them. Spreading the map on the ground, the 4 of them sat in a circle and started discussing. Pointing to the map, Jishui was the first to speak. The land of hot water has been infiltrated by the Cloud Shinobi, and they have many spies here, so we can't continue to stay in this place. It's best to move immediately and retreat through this route. The route Jishui pointed out was along the easternmost coastline of the land of hot water, all the way back to the land of fire. According to the map, this route is within the sphere of influence of the 3 great shinobi villages of Mai, Cloud, and Mist, and it doesn't seem safe at all. But in reality, it was precisely because of this that this route, which was mixed with good and bad people, was the safest. Because no matter which village it was, they didn't have absolute authority in this area. Over time, this area has become a no-man's land, and many retired ninjas or wandering ninjas who have no place to live choose to hide in this area. Guy nodded. Well, this route is good. With the current strength of Team 11, as long as their luck isn't too bad, and they directly run into the main force of the Cloud Shinobi or the Mist Shinobi, then passing through this area shouldn't be a problem. As the captain of Team 11, Kakashi stared at the map without saying a word. Seeing that Kakashi seems to have other plans, Hyojin said, "If there's anything you want to say, just say it. We are all comrades who have experienced life and death together, there's nothing that can't be discussed." Although Kakashi lied to everyone about the previous secret mission and put Team 11 in danger, this secret mission was personally issued by the 3 generations Naruto. But after all, this secret mission was personally issued by the 3 generations Naruto, so Kakashi can't question or refuse it, and in the end, he took the initiative to undertake the most dangerous part of the mission and almost died in battle, so no one blamed him. Kakashi pointed to the location of Team 11 on the map and said slowly, "It stands to reason that we have completed the mission and should quickly retreat to Mai. But think about it. Our current position is right in the middle of the Cloud Village's assault force and the Cloud Village behind them, and this is a very critical location." Hyojin continued Kakashi's words. "Well, this position means danger to us, but our existence is like a fishbone stuck in Cloud Village's throat. As long as they don't get rid of us, they won't dare to boldly attack the Land of Fire. In terms of delaying the enemy, the 4 of us from Team 11 are comparable to a ninja army. Team 11 has just destroyed a secret warehouse of Kumo Village, plus more than 300 Kumo shinobi stationed there as reinforcements, so no matter how conceited Kumo Village is, they don't dare to ignore the existence of Team 11. Once Cloud Village finds out that Team 11 is still active in the Land of Hot Water, their offensive in the Land of Fire will inevitably weaken, or even be forced to stop." Jishui thought for a moment and said, "Yes, although all of us are injured and our combat power has been greatly reduced, Kumo Village doesn't know about it. As long as we hide well enough and occasionally show our faces to scare them, they won't be able to put all their strength into the main battlefield." Currently, in Team 11, Kakashi's body is very weak, even his ability to move is limited, and he has basically lost his combat power. Guy has only regained his ability to move, and with multiple fractures on his body, he has no combat power. Jishui's body is a little overdrawn because of the continuous use of the Manjikyu Sharingan, coupled with the fact that he is the youngest in Team 11. His body and chakra's recovery ability are weaker than the others, so his combat power is only 30 to 40%. The only one who still has combat power is Hyojin Chakra, who has recovered 70% to 80%. Of course, this is not because Hyojin's physique is far better than the others, but because during the battle in the valley, The huge Tenseigan's chakra healed all his injuries, so his combat power is naturally the most preserved. The members of Team 11 quickly reached a consensus and decided to stay in the Land of Hot Water for the time being to attack the Land of Fire's troops from the rear. The reason why Hyojin agreed is because according to the memories of his previous life, Hyojin knows that Kumo village has no intention of expanding this conflict indefinitely. Once the war falls into a stalemate, Kumo village is likely to propose peace talks. And if it is Team 11 that facilitates Kumo village and Mai to return to the negotiating table, then it will be a great honor and qualification for the 4 members of Team 11. Take Naruto 4 generations as an example. Nothing can accumulate reputation faster than making meritorious deeds in war. Land of Fire, Kumo Raiding Force Camp. Through active communication with the village in the rear, Hachibi's Jinchuriki, Nibi's Jinchuriki Yujito, and the other commanders finally learned the reason why 4 generations Lei-ing issued the pause attack. Staring at the news from the village in his hand, Chalabi's cynical face also became gloomy. The news from Lei-ing mentioned that 4 secret warehouses located at the border were attacked by Mai Umbu at almost the same time. One of the warehouses was completely destroyed, and more than 300 Kumo ninjas stationed around the warehouse were killed. Yujito Ni on the side crossed her arms and said coldly, "Humph, my shinobi only knows how to play dirty tricks." Deputy Commander Ida said worriedly, "It's not surprising that Mai was able to find out the location of the secret warehouse. It's true that it's difficult to conceal the movement of goods, but for them to be able to annihilate more than 300 of our shinobi stationed here, it's not easy." Although Yujito Ni is arrogant, she also knows that it is not an easy task to annihilate 300 ninjas, so she curled her lips and said, "Which of Mai's experts have not shown up?" In the command center, a Kumo Jonin who acted as a secretary stepped forward and answered, "According to the comprehensive information, among the famous experts of the Mai clan, only the patriarch of the Uchiha clan, the patriarch of the Hyuga clan, and the 3 generations Naruto have yet to appear." Ida analyzed, the Hyuga clan rarely goes to the battlefield in person. Even in the previous Third Shinobi War, they only went to the front line a few times at the most critical moments, so the patriarch of the Hyuga clan can be ruled out. The Uchiha clan is indeed a bit strange this time. There is almost no trace of them on the entire battlefield, so this time the incident in the rear is likely to be the work of the Uchiha clan, and the leader may even be the patriarch of the Uchiha clan. Chapter 72. How many experts does Konoha have? Kumo has long been clear about it. In Yujito Ni's opinion, there are no more than 5 people in the entire Konoha who can lead a team to complete this kind of raid behind the enemy lines, except for the defected Orochimaru and the dead Yondaime Hokage couple, so Uchiha Patriarch and Sandaime Hokage, who haven't shown up yet, are the targets of her suspicion. At this time, a Cloud Ninja hurried into the headquarters and said, "The village just sent the latest news." Taking a look at the news, Chilabai, Yujito Ni, and Ida were quite surprised. It turned out that the other 3 secret warehouses that were attacked not only did not suffer any losses, but the Cloud Village also wiped out the Mai Umbu and even captured one of the Mai Umbu. After being interrogated by Genjutsu, the captured Mai Umbu spat out everything he knew. Therefore, the Mai Umbu Team 11 appeared for the first time in the eyes of the Cloud Village. Mai's 4-man Umbu squad killed more than 300 of our people? After a pause, Yujito Ni continued, "Could it be that Lei-ing Sama made a mistake?" Chilabai and Ida were also surprised at this time. Only Chilabai and Yujito Ni, the 2 perfect Jinchuriki, can do this. Even Ida, as the deputy commander, doesn't have this ability. It's not that Ida is not strong, but his chakra is not strong enough. In other words, it is impossible for any normal ninja to have such an abundance of chakra to kill nearly 100 times their number of enemies in one night. We must get rid of Mai's Umbu Team 11. For a time, this thought emerged in the hearts of the 3 people. After the three people looked at each other, Yujito ni stood up and said, "I'll go kill them. In the country of hot water. Enemy attack. Everyone be careful, he's behind. Quickly send a signal for help." Amidst the noise, Kuroto? Maru's Hyojin killed his way into the Cloud Village's convoys. The leader of the Kumo Jonin immediately rushed forward with his kunai in hand. Seeing this, Hyojin's lips curled up slightly. He couldn't remember how many times he had tried to block his grasp with ordinary kunai. Maru's Cloud Ninja. Clang with a crisp sound, the Kumo Chunin leading the team along with the kunai in his hand were both killed by the Fua. Maru was cleanly sliced in half. Without the leader of the Chunin, the remaining Kumo Genin could hardly resist and were killed by Hyojin one by one. Only the last Genin, knowing that he was going to die, resolutely detonated the detonation talisman hidden in the transport vehicle, blowing up all the supplies and himself into the sky. Hyojin, who has escorted supplies several times during the Third Shinobi World War, is very familiar with this method, so he was able to avoid the explosion early on. His goal is not these supplies, so there is no need to take risks. After walking around the battlefield and checking that there were no survivors, Kuroto picked up the kunai that was broken in two and put it into the storage bag on his waist. If this broken kunai is left on the battlefield, then Cloud Village will judge that Hyojin has a sword on him based on the smooth cut of the kunai. Once Cloud Village learns this information, it will be much more difficult for Hyojin to attack them in the future. After confirming that there were no traces left, Hyojin did not stay any longer and immediately left the scene. Not long after, Cloud Village's Jinchuriki Yujito ni arrived with a large number of Cloud Ninjas. Seeing the mess on the battlefield, and the supplies that were transported to the front line were blown to ashes, the faces of the Cloud Ninjas were extremely ugly. Yujito ni even couldn't hold back her anger, and her pupils turned into the pupils of a Jinchuriki. At this time, a Cloud Jonin came over and shook his head towards Yujito ni. "There are no survivors." Yujito ni suppressed her anger. "There are no clues?" The Cloud Jonin nodded. "As before, our people were all killed with a single sword strike, and the other party is still that taijutsu expert who uses a short blade. His style is somewhat similar to White Fanged Mai." Yujito ni gritted her teeth and roared fiercely. "Chase, he must not have gone far." Whoosh! With Yujito ni's order, the Cloud Ninjas on the battlefield immediately used the body flicker technique and turned into a series of afterimages, chasing in all directions. Sensing the pursuers behind him, Hyojin smiled slightly and immediately formed a hand seal to release a shadow clone. The main body and the shadow clone quickly separated, one on the left and one on the right, and separated in different directions. After using the shadow clone to get rid of the pursuers, Hyojin came to a crack on a high cliff. This place is not only hidden, but also has a wide field of vision. For a ninja like Hyojin who has a strong insight, this is the best place to hide. Taking out a military ration pill and chewing it in his mouth, Hyojin was thinking about the next step. While quenching the poison in his mouth, Hyojin was thinking about the next step. In the past week, Kuroto has attacked 3 Kumo transport teams in a row. Although he didn't destroy a lot of materials and didn't cause much casualties to Kumo, he still brought a lot of trouble to Kumo, causing several transport routes of Kumo to be in a state of panic. With the rear unstable, Cloud's offensive in the Land of Fire has to be slowed down. The abnormal behavior of Cloud Village immediately attracted the attention of Mai. Not only that, but several other shinobi villages who are paying close attention to this conflict also noticed the abnormal behavior of Cloud Village. Everyone unanimously turned their eyes to the Land of Hot Water located between the Land of Fire and the Land of Lightning, as if this is the key to the conflict between Mai and Cloud Village. At the same time, with the active activities of Hyojin and the others, my Team 11 quickly became the #1 target of Cloud Village. More and more experts of Cloud Village joined the encirclement and suppression of my Umbu Team 11. On Hyojin's side, at first, there was only a team of Jonin. But now, not only did Cloud Village send out the Jinchuriki of Nibi, but they also sent out more than 20 Jonin in a row. This lineup is comparable to encirclement and suppression of Kage-level experts. Suddenly, because of Kurodo, Hyojin was distracted by the poisonous pill. Just a moment ago, he sensed his shadow clone vanish. This wasn't a big deal. After all, the shadow clone was a bait to draw away the pursuers. But what surprised him was that the shadow clone had disappeared very abruptly and hadn't sent back any memories. In other words, the shadow clone was instantly killed. Although Hyojin's shadow clone technique is not proficient enough, and the technique needs to be improved, but it has at least inherited 50% of his combat power and pupil power. Such a shadow clone was instantly killed, which shows that the opponent is not only strong, but also very fast. So fast that even with 50% of Hyojin's pupil power, the shadow clone couldn't react in time. Chapter 73. In the entire shinobi world, there may be many people who can defeat Hyojin, but there are not many people who can be so fast that Hyojin's shadow clone can't even react. When it came to Hidden Cloud Village, there were only a handful of them. Could it be the 4 generations laying? While making wild guesses, Kurodo took advantage of the situation. He sheathed the sword. Judging from Cloud Village's reaction, Team 11's plan was undoubtedly a success. If, as Hyojin expected, even Cloud Village's 4 generations laying was lured out, then it further proves that Class 11 played a role in delaying Cloud Village's offensive. Considering that 4 generations laying may have joined the encirclement against him, Hyojin decided to temporarily stop harassing Cloud Village's transportation line. 4 generations laying is not an ordinary ninja. His speed is almost the fastest in the world of ninjas. Even the 4 generations Naruto, who was known as the Golden Flash, would probably be inferior to the 4 generations laying in terms of regular speed if he did not use the Flying Thunder God. Facing such a powerhouse, the slightest bit of carelessness would result in death. Team 11's plan was to attack the transport line behind Cloud Village's assault force, so Hyojin didn't want to risk his life fighting with the suspected 4 generations laying at this time. As long as he was alive and well, he would have won. Before long, Hyojin returned to the small cave where Class 11 was hiding. Jishui, who had also just returned, asked, "Senior, how's the progress on your side?" Hyojin smiled. "I took care of 3 small transport teams. What about you?" Jishui replied, "As expected of Senior. I've been busy for several days, but I've only intercepted one." Jishui doesn't have Hyojin's long-range reconnaissance ability, so the efficiency of searching for the Cloud Village's transport team is far lower than Hyojin's. In addition, he has recently consumed too much of his pupil power, so he is very cautious when choosing the target to intercept. Guy, who was resting in the cave, whispered, "I'll go with you next time." Because their injuries haven't healed yet, Guy and Kakashi didn't go out to disturb Cloud Village's transportation line. As before, they stayed in the cave to recuperate. It's just that Guy has a restless temperament. When he heard Hyojin and Jishui talking about the results of the attack on Cloud Village, he couldn't help but feel itchy. "You'd better stay here." Hyojin shook his head and immediately mentioned that his shadow clone was killed in an instant. "I suspect that 4 generations laying may also be in the land of hot water." Jishui was surprised. "Senior, did you do anything to laying?" Shursui is really worried that Kurodo might have done something to Reikage, because in his opinion, Kurodo has the strength to fight against Reikage, so he is sure that Kurodo has the strength to compete with Reikage. And if something happens to laying, then the conflict between Mai and Cloud Village may escalate into a full-scale war. Guy and Kakashi are dumbfounded. After a while, Kakashi asked weakly, If Kurodo meets laying, shouldn't we be worried about Kurodo?" Guy quickly nodded and said, "Yes, Liang is not someone we can deal with." Hyojin also had a helpless look on his face. He glanced at Jishui and secretly cursed in his heart, "Jishui, do you have some misunderstanding about my strength?" Unlike the arrogant and reckless 4 generations Liang in the future, the current 4 generations Liang was suppressed by the 4 generations Naruto in the Third Shinobi War, so compared to the future, he is much more cautious. And such a high-speed ninja, once cautious, is almost invulnerable. If he has the support of the Tenseigan on the moon, Hyojin wouldn't be afraid of the 4 generations Liang, but if he doesn't have the support of the Tenseigan and only relies on his own chakra, then he can only turn around and run if he encounters the 4 generations Liang. What's more, 4 generations Liang is bound to be surrounded by a large number of Cloud Village elites. If he dares to look for trouble with the 4 generations Liang at this time, then it is a typical case of having a mental problem. After weighing the current situation, Hyojin said to the members of Team 11, "Now that we have completed the mission, the risk of staying in the land of hot water is too great, so I propose to return to Mai immediately." Jishui nodded, "I agree." Kakashi thought for a moment and nodded. In the distance, standing on a high cliff, Yujito Ni's face was ashen. At this time, a Cloud Jonin came out from the crack of the cliff and said, "This should be the hiding place of the Mai ninja who attacked our transport team." Yujito Ni quickly asked, "Is there any clue inside?" The Cloud Jonin said, "Although there is no clue, but he left his scent, that's enough." After saying that, the Cloud Jonin walked to the edge of the cliff and whistled towards the distance. After a while, a skylark covered with silver feathers followed the whistle and flew to the high cliff. After circling a few times in the air, it steadily landed on the shoulder of the Cloud Jonin. After commanding the skylark to smell the scent in the crack, the Cloud Jonin threw the skylark high in the air, and the skylark also took off into the air, circled a few times, and then flew in a certain direction. The Cloud Jonin said to Yujito Ni, "Found it, it's in that direction." Yujito Ni only spat out one word, "Chase." In an instant, more than a dozen cloud ninjas on the cliff turned into a series of afterimages and followed the skylark. After a while, the Kumo ninjas stopped outside a cave. One of the Cloud Jonin who was good at perception pointed at the ground, closed his eyes and sensed for a while, then said to his companions around him, "Just in the cave in front, 1 to 3 people, a total of 3 people, all of them have chakras amount, it should be Mai's Umbu Team 11. Yujito Ni stared at the entrance of the cave and asked, "Are there any traps around?" After a while, the Jonin shook his head, "There doesn't seem to be any traps outside the cave, but there are a lot of weak chakras energy inside the cave. I can't determine what it is, it may be some kind of technique, or it may be a detonation talisman." An elderly Kumo Jonin frowned. "Could this be a trap?" Yujito Ni said bitterly, "Playing with us for so long, even if it is a trap, I will break it." Thinking that the surprise attack prepared by the village for so long was turned upside down by a mere Mai Umbu squad, Yujito Ni couldn't help but feel angry. Soon, under the leadership of Yujito Ni, a group of cloud ninjas broke into the cave. Seeing the 3 members of Team 11 packing up in the cave, Yujito Ni grinned, "Humph, I finally caught you little mice." Chapter 74. The 3 members of Class 11 in the cave did not panic too much, and instead took out their weapons to be on guard. At this moment, Yujito Ni's gaze landed on Hyojin's face, and she immediately frowned slightly, seemingly thinking of something. "So it's you, are you from the Hyuga clan?" Obviously, Yujito Ni remembered that she had encountered Hyojin during the last mission to recover the Forbidden Technique scrolls. That was the first time she failed a mission, so she had a deep impression of Hyojin. Besides, because Hyojin did not wear the black goggles this time, she recognized that he was from the Hyuga clan. One is a Byakugan and the other is a Sharingan. No wonder it's so difficult to deal with them. It turns out that 2 of them are pupillary Kekai ninjas. After sizing up Hyojin and Jishui, Yujito ni humphed softly. Great, let's settle the old and new scores together. Hyojin ignored Yujito ni and said to Jishui calmly, It's a pity that it's a Jinchuriki. Jishui asked, Senpai, should we activate it? Hyojin nodded. Hearing the conversation between Hyojin and Jishui, Yujito ni suddenly felt that something was amiss and immediately yelled, Get out! Boom boom boom. Before Yujito ni finished speaking, a series of explosions sounded in the cave, and the sound was so loud that it spread far and wide. As the smoke and dust gradually dissipated, Second Last's huge figure appeared in the ruins of the cave, while the dozen or so Kumo ninjas who rushed into the cave with Yujito ni all hid under Second Last's body, barely escaping the explosion and the collapse of the cave. Whoosh! At this moment, several figures landed outside the ruins of the cave, led by none other than the 4 generations of Kumo, Lei-ing. Lei-ing of 4 generations glanced at the disheveled Yujito ni and the others and asked in a muffled voice, Where are the enemies? Yujito ni, who had already withdrawn from her tailed beast form, coughed violently and said, Ahem. This is a trap, I'm afraid they have already escaped. Lei-ing of 4 generations looked into the distance and said emotionally, It seems that Mai is not as weak as we expected. Maybe it's time to end this conflict. Yujito ni hurriedly said, Lei-ing, Sama, please give me some more time, I will definitely kill them. Raikage shook his head. The news just came back from the front line. Sandaime Hokage led his troops to attack Chalabi yesterday. Chalabi couldn't resist and began to retreat. Not only that, but the Rock Village's movements are also not clear. Rock Village's eyes aren't only focused on Konoha. If Cloud Village reveals a flaw, they won't hesitate to come forward and bite them. Yujito ni murmured, Don't be discouraged, there will be another chance. Lei-ing patted Yujito ni's shoulder and said, Don't be discouraged, there will be another chance. Yujito ni's face was gloomy, she gritted her teeth and said, Damn it, Mai's Class 11, the eastern coastline of the country of hot water. Along the coastline, the 4 members of Team 11 were heading towards Konoha at full speed. Suddenly, Hyojin stopped and the other 3 people of Class 11 also stopped. Among them, Jishui and Kakashi looked at each other with a regretful look on their faces. Jishui sighed and said, I didn't expect it to be like this, what a pity. Kakashi, who was a little listless, said doubtfully, Kumo's reaction is too extreme, just to deal with us, they even sent out their human Jinchuriki? And isn't Ni's human Jinchuriki in their assault force? Why did it suddenly appear in the country of hot water? Isn't this too strange? Kakashi didn't know that Hyojin in the Tenseigan chakra mode wiped out the entire valley and killed hundreds of Kumo ninjas, so he was a little puzzled by Kumo's reaction. Jishui glanced at Hyojin carefully and said in his heart, In the face of a strong person like Kuroto-senpai, Kumo has no chance of winning if they don't send out their human Jinchuriki. Hyojin's face was calm, and he didn't say anything. When he thought that so many detonation talismans were wasted, his mood naturally became 100 times worse. After deciding to evacuate the country of hot water, Team 11 immediately arranged a large trap, ready to deal a final blow to Kumo. The Team 11 in the trap was just a shadow clone of Hyojin, Jishui, and Kakashi. As for Guy, because he hasn't mastered the shadow clone technique yet, there was no shadow clone in the cave trap. Originally, he wanted to attract a team of Jonin, or at least a Jonin team led by a Jonin to investigate. Unexpectedly, it directly attracted Nibi's Jinchuriki, Yujito ni. Once a Jinchuriki is transformed into a tailed beast, under the protection of the tailed beast chakra, general explosions and cave collapses are difficult to cause fatal damage to them. What's more, Yujito ni belongs to the perfect Jinchuriki, which means that she can cooperate with Nibi, so the power of the hastily arranged trap is not enough to deal with her. After receiving the message from the shadow clone in the distance, the 4 members of Team 11 once again rushed towards Mai. As more and more Kumo forces are invested in the country of hot water, The country of hot water has become more and more dangerous, so at this time, even if it's a little regretful, Team 11 had to evacuate immediately. Perhaps they were worried about the conflict between Mai and Kumo, so the wandering ninjas in the country of hot water have already fled, so Team 11 galloped along the coastline of the country of hot water for a few days. Except for a few fishermen, they didn't encounter a single ninja. A week later, the 4 members of Team 11 finally returned to the territory of the Country of Fire. In the Country of Fire, Team 11 soon encountered the scouting and patrolling My Ninja squad, and through these My Ninjas, they learned about the latest situation. Just as Hyojin remembered in his previous life, Kumo's raid on Mai was just a test. And the cause of this test was the accidental death of 4 generations Naruto and 9 tails Jinchuriki. It can be said that this conflict between Mai and Kumo is completely the follow-up effect of Mai's 9 tails rebellion, Orochimaru's defection, and the death of 4 generations Naruto and his wife. Whether it is Kumo itself or Mai who was attacked, neither side has the intention to start a full-scale war, so after the attack was unsuccessful, Kumo released the intention of peace talks to Mai. Regarding Kumo's request for peace talks, 3 generations Naruto readily accepted. 3 generations Naruto doesn't know how much trouble Team 11 caused behind Kumo, and even if he knew, he would still choose to negotiate with Kumo, because Mai can't afford another shinobi war. Chapter 75. In a damp cave in the country of rain. Drip water droplets hit the rock and made a crisp sound. At this time, 2 huge Nepenthes leaves slowly rose from the ground, and a strange face with half white and half black appeared in the middle of the leaves. The masked man sitting in the cave glanced at it slightly and asked casually, "Ju, how is the situation?" The strange man named Ju, who still has half of his body hidden in the ground, replied, "They have already begun to negotiate. It's completely different from what you expected." The masked man was silent for a while and said, "Why did Cloud Village slow down their offensive?" At the beginning of the raid, Cloud Village almost broke through the frontal defense of Mai. Everyone who was paying attention to this conflict, including the masked man, thought that Cloud Village would quickly approach Mai Village. But no one expected that Cloud Village, who was in an advantageous position, would suddenly slow down their offensive, making the originally clear situation suddenly become confusing. Ju shook his head. "I don't know. Monitoring all the battlefields in the Country of Fire has made Ju a little tired, so he can't take care of the battle outside the Country of Fire at all." The masked man was a little annoyed. "Cloud Village is wasting an opportunity." Ju recalled and replied, "Maybe there is something wrong with the rear of Cloud Village. A few weeks before they withdrew from the Country of Fire, their deployment was a bit strange. Nibi's Jinchuriki even left the frontline troops and hurried back to the rear." The masked man waved his hand. "Forget it." The masked man didn't want to get to the bottom of it. In his opinion, whether it is Mai or Cloud Village, they are just pawns that can be used. Since they are just pawns that can be casually manipulated, there is no need to place too much hope on them. Ju asked in a daze, "What should we do next?" The masked man smiled. From this conflict with Kumo, it can be seen that the Konoha village has completely lost trust in the Uchiha clan. We should start with the Uchiha clan to further weaken the Konoha clan. What do you need me to do? Find me a clansman of Uchiha. After a pause, the masked man's tone became more and more gloomy. "I need a good chess piece to provoke the relationship between Uchiha and the village. My village, Uchiha clan grounds." Dong dong dong, a series of hurried knocks came from outside the courtyard. Jishui, who had just returned home, had no choice but to drag his exhausted body to open the courtyard door. As soon as he opened the door, Itachi's thin figure reflected in his eyes. Itachi said happily, "Brother Jishui, you are finally back." The Uchiha clan knew about Jishui's secret mission. Moreover, many Uchiha clansmen believed that the three generations were abusing their power to avenge their personal grudges. They deliberately used the mission to eliminate the number one genius of the Uchiha clan, so Itachi was very worried about Jishui's safety. Jishui smiled as he led Itachi into the house. After sitting down, Jishui briefly mentioned the mission of Class 11 and then said with a smile, "Don't worry, we have Kuroto-senpai in Class 11, so there won't be too much danger." Hearing that Class 11 caused a lot of trouble in the country of Thunder, Itachi asked curiously, "Brother Jishui, is it because of you that the Cloud Village slowed down their offensive?" I also felt strange about the abnormality of the Cloud Village. All kinds of speculations and probing have never stopped until they confirmed that the Cloud Village really had a problem in the rear. 3 generations Naruto personally led the troops to attack the Cloud Village and drove them out of the country of fire in one fell swoop. Jishui nodded with a smile. Recalling the look of surprise on the face of 3 generations after listening to the report of Class 11, Kuroto's mood became very carefree. There is no doubt that after returning to the village, Class 11, after synthesizing all the information, quickly came to a conclusion. It was because of their harassment in the rear of the Cloud Village that the Cloud Village was forced to slow down their offensive, winning valuable breathing space for Mai. After chatting for a while, Itachi suddenly said, "Brother Jishui, look." With that, Itachi's eyes suddenly turned red, and 2 Magatama slowly appeared in his pupils. Jishui was overjoyed. "You opened your eyes?" Itachi nodded. "I opened my eyes on the battlefield last week." "Why are you on the battlefield?" Itachi said, "I have graduated early." At this moment, a figure fell in the courtyard of Jishui's house and said, "Jishui, the patriarch is holding a clan meeting in the mansion, he is waiting for you." The smile on Jishui's face suddenly solidified, and his face became gloomy. Arriving at the mansion, Jishui looked at the people in the house. Inside the house, Patriarch Uchiha Fuyue sat in the center with his hands crossed over his chest, surrounded by the elites of the Uchiha police force. More than a dozen of them are jonin. Seeing this scene, Jishui's heart tightened. Even the ordinary Tokubetsu jonin in the clan are not qualified to participate in this clan meeting. He can already vaguely guess what the issue will be discussed in this clan meeting. Patriarch. After saying hello, Jishui silently sat in the corner. Fuyue glanced at Jishui and nodded. As soon as Jishui arrived, the Uchiha clan meeting officially began. Soon, an elite Uchiha jonin from the police force said, "Captain, I have received accurate news that the village has lost more than 30 jonin this time. Hyuga, Nara, Akimichi, Yamanaka, Abazuka, and other shinobi clans have lost many jonin and genin." As he said, the elite Uchiha jonin stood up, and his expression became more and more excited. After suffering such a big loss, 3 generations actually agreed to the peace talks. Many people in the village are dissatisfied. This is an opportunity for us. Another elite Uchiha jonin said in an orderly manner. It is said that the Umbu directly under Naruto also lost a lot this time, and the strength of 3 generations has been weakened again. As soon as the voice of this elite Uchiha jonin fell, the Uchiha jonin in the room looked at Jishui, who was sitting in the corner. At present, only Jishui has joined the Umbu in the entire Uchiha clan, so the real information about the Umbu can only be obtained through Jishui. Seeing everyone looking at him, Jishui was both annoyed and helpless, so he had to casually say, "I don't know much, probably 3 Umbu squads were lost." The Uchiha jonin in the room were very excited when they heard this, and one of them stood up and said to Patriarch Fuyue, "Captain, it's time, the position of Naruto should be our Uchiha clan." "Yes, Captain, let's do it." The atmosphere gradually heated up, and the Uchiha jonin of the police force stood up one after another. Clan leader Fugaku crossed his arms in front of his chest and sat steadily. Chapter 76. Looking at the fanatical and distorted faces of the clansmen in front of him, Jishui felt frightened for the first time. If this crazy emotion was allowed to spread in the house, only destruction would await the Uchiha clan. After making up his mind, Jishui stood up and said, "Patriarch, force is not the solution to the problem, and with the strength of our clan, we are not a match for the village at all." "Jishui, what nonsense are you talking about? Are you afraid? Uchiha is the strongest. As long as we take down the 3 generations, the people in the village will agree with us." The house suddenly became noisy. Ahem, Patriarch Fuyue coughed twice to stop the chaos of the Uchiha. Jishui did not give in at all. Blind action will only lead the Uchiha clan into the abyss. Fuyue looked deeply at Jishui and immediately waved his hand. "That's all for today. Go back." On the way home alone, Jishui covered his eyes with one hand and said in his heart, "Maybe my Manjikyu Sharingan was awakened to save the clan, but can Koto Amami really change the fate of the Uchiha?" Hyojin's house. Looking at the scroll of the 4 symbols seal, Hyojin was thoughtful. The difficulty of learning the 4 symbols seal was much higher than he expected. It even involved the transformation of the chakra attribute. It was a sealing technique that truly understood the changes of the chakra attribute. Perhaps it was because of this that many powerful forbidden techniques were developed with the 4 symbols seal as a foundation. At this time, Belle walked into the room with a fragrant dish. Smelling the fragrance, Hyojin's finger was moved and he smiled. "It smells so good." Belle sat on the side and whispered, "I haven't heard from you before. I thought something happened to you." Hyojin smiled gently. "Didn't I tell you long ago? Don't worry. In fact, this mission wasn't that dangerous. It just took some time to hide." Ling pursed her lips and said, "You're always like this. In order to deceive me, you make something that's obviously very dangerous sound so easy." Hyojin quickly changed the topic. "By the way, did the clan suffer great losses this time?" Ling sighed and said dejectedly, "Including Zhao's father, the clan lost more than 10 people this time. Hyuga Takashi is Yui's neighbor and has a good relationship with Yui. His father is one of the few elite jonin in the Hyuga family. In this conflict, he died in the hands of the Cloud Shinobi Aida. With the death of Hyuga's father, the number of elite jonin in the Hyuga clan, including the retired elders, can be counted on one hand." Hyojin's face darkened at the thought of the many more orphans in his family. "You then said, Patriarch said that if you have time, please come to the clanland." Hyojin nodded. Now that he can freely open and close his Tenseigan, there is no need to hide from the clan. After eating the food cooked by you, Hyojin walked towards the clanland. Although the Hyuga clan didn't move to the same place as Uchiha, most of the clansmen still gather near the old house of the Hyuga clan, so this area is also called the Hyuga clanland by the villagers. Arriving at the gate of the Hyuga clan, Hyojin was just about to knock on the door. At this time, a waiter came out and said, "Kuroto-sama, the patriarch is waiting for you inside." Hyojin was in a trance when he heard this. This is the first time that he was called Kuroto-sama in the clan, and the waiter who called him Kuroto-sama is a chunin, which is impossible in the past. Walking into the old house of the Hyuga clan, after passing through a corridor, Hyojin finally saw the current patriarch of the Hyuga clan, Hyuga Hayashi. "Patriarch." Hyojin politely saluted. Hyuga Hayashi, who was sitting upright, nodded. "Sit down." Sitting opposite Hyuga Hayashi, Hyojin asked, "Patriarch, what can I do for you?" Hayashi pondered for a moment and said, "Uchiha Jishui is your teammate in the Umbu, right?" "Yes." "Then you should have heard something about Uchiha, right?" Hyojin frowned slightly. "Patriarch, what do you mean?" Hayashi bluntly said, "This time the conflict with Cloud Village completely exposed the suspicion and fear of Uchiha. I am worried that the village will make a move against Uchiha. As the patriarch of the Hyuga clan, Hyuga Hayashi is well aware of the way of balance, Whether it is the village eradicating Uchiha or Uchiha taking control of the village, both are unacceptable to the Hyuga clan. Only by reaching a balance between Uchiha and the village can the Hyuga clan become the object of both sides, thus ensuring their own safety. But now, the balance between Uchiha and the village is collapsing little by little, and in the eyes of the discerning people, a fierce conflict is getting closer and closer. Hayashi continued. Uchiha and our Hyuga clan are both members of the Hyuga clan, and also have the same Dojutsu Kekkai Genkai. If they are easily eradicated, the prestige of our Hyuga clan in the village will also be affected. And if they take control of the village, we will inevitably be suspected and excluded, so I hope that you can use your identity as an Umbu to try your best to prevent this conflict from happening. Just like Jishui's situation in the Uchiha clan, because Hyojin is also the only Hyuga who currently serves in the Umbu, so no matter what the Hyuga clan wants to do, it is inseparable from his support. Hyojin immediately replied, I understand. On the issue of Uchiha, Hyojin and the Hyuga clan's attitude is unified, that is, Uchiha cannot fall. Why is the reputation of the Hyuga clan so good? Isn't it because of Uchiha over the years? Once Uchiha is gone, the Hyuga clan may be excluded as an alternative. After all, a Dojutsu Kekkai Genkai is indeed better than most ordinary ninjas in all aspects. After talking about the issue of Uchiha, Hayashi then took out a few bounty lists and handed them to Hyojin, and said, In the near future, you'd better be careful. Hyojin took the bounty list and looked at it, only to see his own portrait on it, and the bounty number below was a long string of zeros. He counted for a long time and said, 20 million liang? Hayashi said leisurely, There is a second one. Hyojin quickly turned to the second bounty list, and this bounty list also has his portrait, and the bounty number below is also a long string of zeros. The amount is even more than the first one. 25 million liang? What is going on? Chapter 77. After some detailed questioning, Kuroto learned that all 4 members of Team 11 have a bounty of 20 million ryo on their heads, and the bounty for each of them is 20 million ryo. This bounty should be the work of Kumo village, right? After thinking about it, Kuroto can only think of the Kumo and Rock clans who have a grudge against Umbu Team 11, and compared to Rock clans, Kumo is obviously more suspicious. But how did Kumo get the specific information about our Team 11? Could it be that their spy has already infiltrated the Umbu? This sudden thought startled Hyojin himself. The Umbu directly under Naruto are all personally selected by the 3 generations, and the scope of the selection is also known to all the ninjas in the village. If there is a spy from another village among them, then it means that this spy has infiltrated the village for a long time. At least in terms of foundation, there is no flaw in this spy. Immediately afterward, Hyojin thought of the second bounty. This second bounty is 5 million ryo higher than the first, reaching a shocking level of 25 million ryo, which is almost the bounty of the famous elite Jonin of the 5 great shinobi villages. The strangest thing is that this second bounty is a single bounty, and the target is only Hyojin. This undoubtedly shows that the person who issued the bounty only has a personal grudge against Hyojin, and has nothing to do with Team 11. Who could it be? Seeing Hyojin's thoughtful look, Hayashi thought that he was worried about the bounty, so he said, You don't have to worry too much. For a ninja, the bounty in the black market is a reflection of our merits, and only a powerful ninja will have a high bounty. Hyojin nodded. He is not afraid. He is just a little concerned about who the person who issued the bounty is. Raising the cup and taking a sip of tea, Hayashi asked, Do you know how much the bounty on me is in the black market? How much? Hayashi said lightly, 100 million ryo. Hyojin laughed awkwardly, hee, as expected of the Lord Patriarch. Hyojin naturally understands that this 100 million ryo is not so much a bounty for Hyuga Hayashi himself, but a bounty for the Hyuga clan, a bounty for Byakugan. As we all know, only the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan can be stolen, and the Hyuga clan is small. Therefore, as long as you kill Hyuga Hayashi, not only will you get a pair of Byakugan, but you will also be able to cause an immeasurable impact on the Hyuga clan's separation system. After leaving the ancestral clan, Hyojin slowly walked towards his own home. As he passed by a narrow alley, a figure suddenly appeared from the shadows, blocking his path. Hyojin's expression turned cold as he pulled out the blade of grass from his waist. Pill activated the Byakugan and assumed a posture of being on full alert. The figure that walked out from the darkness was leaning on a stick. Remove carries? Young surging worm burden scars pelican first walking worm burden. Omega cute and fresh solo Shohyojin immediately put away the Byakugan, nodded and said, "Yes, Danzo-sama." The one who stopped Hyojin's path was none other than Danzo Shimura, who has the title of Dark Shinobi. At the same time, he is also a member of Mai's advisory group, the commander of Root. You are very talented, there is no future for you to stay in the Umbu. Join my Root, you will have everything you want. Danzo's tone is very cold, it doesn't seem like he is trying to win people over, but he seems to be full of confidence, as if the conditions he offered are difficult for Hyojin to refuse. Hyojin replied without hesitation, "I'm sorry, I am directly under Naruto-sama's Umbu, and all the transfers must follow the arrangements of the 3 generations Naruto-sama." Danzo's eyes suddenly became cold. If this old man remembers correctly, this is the second time you refuse to join the Root. Because of Orochimaru's defection, Hyojin was temporarily detained, and he once refused the recruitment of the Root, but at that time he was just a chunin, a dispensable cannon fodder role, so Danzo didn't take it seriously. Not only did he become a Tokubetsu Jonin, but he also defeated several Uchiha shinobi in a row. Not long ago, he also completed the secret mission assigned by Sandaime-sama. He is now a young man in the limelight of Konoha, which is why Danzo chose to personally recruit him. Because of this, Hyojin refused without hesitation, making Danzo very dissatisfied. Facing Danzo's threat, Hyojin turned a deaf ear. "Sorry, I am not interested in joining the Root. Young man, every decision must be carefully made, otherwise you will regret it in the future." After saying that, Danzo's figure gradually disappeared into the darkness. Looking at Danzo, who felt good about himself, as if everything was under his control, Hyojin's face was expressionless. In fact, when he turned into the narrow alley, he had already noticed Danzo hiding in the shadows, and the panicked opening of the Sharingan, pulling out the sword, and so on, were all deliberately put on by him. His purpose was just to open the Byakugan and spy on Danzo's current state. And this performance was obviously not in vain. Hyojin discovered that the current Danzo has been transplanted with Hashirama's cells, as well as the Sharingan on his entire arm. No wonder he has been appearing less and less in public recently. While sighing, Hyojin had to think of a way to deal with it. Kuroto still hasn't forgotten about the Konoha village's cleansing, and after many investigations and the information provided by Orochimaru, it was Danzo who presided over the cleansing of the Konoha village. So whether Danzo provokes him or not, Kuroto will not let Danzo go. It's just that the information he obtained just now made him a little surprised. He didn't expect that at this time, Danzo has already transplanted Hashirama's cells and a large number of Sharingan. This also shows that Danzo has never given up on human experiments, and in the research of Hashirama's cells, he is even ahead of Orochimaru. Moreover, Danzo must have started collecting Sharingan a long time ago, otherwise, it would be impossible for him to have so many Sharingan at once before the Uchiha clan was exterminated. Uchiha clan doesn't have caged birds, so collecting Sharingan is very easy, at least for Danzo who controls the Root. Humph, this has been premeditated. Hyojin walked quietly towards his home while thinking to himself, I'm afraid that even if Uchiha doesn't plan a coup, Danzo will still act against them. Danzo has taken a fancy to Uchiha's Sharingan. As a member of Mai's advisory group, Danzo should have the strength close to Kage, otherwise Danzo wouldn't be so obsessed with Naruto's position. Chapter 78. No matter what the problem is, once it involves the Uchiha clan and the Sharingan, Kuroda can't be careless. Because the Uchiha clan has too many strange forbidden jutsu hidden in their Sharingan, such as Izanagi, Izanami, and so on, if one doesn't know the details, it is impossible to guard against them. Since Danzo has transplanted Hashirama cells and a large number of Sharingan, it is likely that he has also mastered some of the Uchiha clan's forbidden jutsu. Facing Danzo head-on at this time is too risky. Orochimaru is a good example. As a real Kage-level powerhouse, he was easily defeated by Itachi's Sharingan. This lesson is worth Hyojin's vigilance. After returning home, Hyojin calmed his mind and once again studied the four-symbol seal. Increasing his own strength was his top priority at the moment. All other plans were just to serve this purpose. He had always been very clear about this primary and secondary relationship. For now, Kuroda has actually learned the four symbols seal. Of course, this learned refers to being able to barely use it. As for the specific operation principle of the four symbols seal, as well as a deeper degree of development and so on, he is far from enough, so he needs to further study the four symbols seal. Because the four symbols seal is a door that can open the Uzumaki clan's sealing technique treasury. And as long as he masters the Uzumaki sealing technique, he can break the seal of the dragon vein of the four generations, thus completing the most important part of the artificial-tailed beast plan. After studying for a while, Hyojin recorded his experience one by one. After writing, while looking at his recorded experience, Kuroda thought to himself, this time Team 11's contribution should be enough to exchange for another sealing technique. Kuroda predicts that it will only take a week at most to completely master the four symbols seal. After mastering the four symbols seal, if he can learn one or two more Uzumaki sealing techniques, then he is sure to understand the mystery of the Uzumaki sealing technique through the Tenseigan. And with the contribution of Class 11 this time, in his opinion, it should be more than enough to exchange for a sealing technique. The next morning, Hyojin went out. Along the way, all he heard were the villagers arguing about the peace talks between the village and Cloud Village. There is no doubt that the ninjas of Mai are very indignant about the sudden attack of Kumo village. Coupled with this conflict, hundreds of ninjas have died in the village. Almost every major clan has a funeral, therefore, many ninjas of my village are quite dissatisfied with the peace talks. Everyone could more or less understand the difficulties of the three generations in agreeing to the peace talks. But being ruthlessly beaten by someone and then having to shake hands and make peace, as the ninjas of the number 1 shinobi village in the shinobi world, they really can't swallow this humiliation. In this regard, Hyojin did not feel much emotion. Today's Mai is no longer the Hodame Mai who can suppress everything. In the shinobi world, if one's own strength is not enough, then one can only silently endure humiliation. Moreover, this is just the beginning, there are still many troubles waiting for the village in the future. After arriving at the agreed place, Hyojin waited quietly. Not long after, a figure landed in front of Hyojin. It was Uchiha Jishui who agreed to meet with Hyojin. Jishui said apologetically, Kuroda-san, sorry to keep you waiting. It's okay, I just arrived a while ago. Waving his hand, Hyojin said, I asked you to come here this time because I have something very important to tell you. What is it? Hyojin activated the Byakugan, and after confirming that no one was around, he said in a low voice, I saw Danzo yesterday and discovered a secret on him. Jishui was surprised. What, you also saw Danzo-sama yesterday? Hyojin frowned slightly when he heard this. A bad premonition suddenly surged in his heart and asked, "You also met him yesterday?" Jishui replied, "Well, Danzo-sama invited me to join route, but I refused." "Did Danzo-sama also invited you, Kuroto-san?" Hyojin hurriedly said, "You didn't confess to him about the Manjikyu Sharingan, did you?" Jishui nodded. "We talked about the conflict between Uchiha and the village, and in order to reassure Danzo-sama and the village, I confessed to Danzo-sama and the 3 generations about the Manjikyu Sharingan, and promised them that if necessary, I will stop the excessive actions of the family." Hyojin's face sank. "Idiot?" Jishui was confused. "What do you mean? Do you know what I'm going to tell you today?" After a pause, Hyojin continued, "Yesterday, I discovered through the Byakugan that Danzo has transplanted the cells of Hashirama and a large number of Sharingan, and he has transformed his body beyond recognition." "What?" Jishui froze in place. Hyojin glanced at him and said, "That old guy has been coveting the Sharingan for a long time, and you still told him about the awakening of the Manjikyu Sharingan. Isn't that the same as sending a sheep to the tiger's mouth?" The countermeasure that Hyojin thought of yesterday was to tell Jishui that Danzo coveted the Sharingan, and then induce Jishui to use Kodoematsukami on Danzo, so as to get rid of Danzo once and for all. But he didn't expect that Danzo would act so quickly, and yesterday, not only did he contact him, but also Jishui. What's even more unexpected is that Jishui actually confessed to Danzo and the 3 generations about the awakening of the Manjikyu Sharingan. Of course, this is also because Hyojin didn't know that Jishui was stimulated at the Uchiha clan meeting yesterday. In yesterday's Uchiha clan meeting, some Uchiha clansmen publicly declared a coup by force, and it is precisely this point that prompted Jishui to confess to the village elders. After being distracted for a long time, Jishui murmured, "Kuroto-san, did I do something wrong?" Hyojin asked again. "In addition to Susanoo, your Manjikyu Sharingan should have other abilities, right?" Without hesitation, Jishui immediately replied, "Yes, my Manjikyu Sharingan can launch a genjutsu called Kodoematsukami. This genjutsu can modify and manipulate the enemy's will without their knowledge." "Did you also tell Danzo and the 3 generations about this?" Jishui nodded and said, "Well, I was planning to use Kodoematsukami to stop the coup, so in order to make 3 generations and Danzo-sama believe me, I didn't hide anything from you." Hyojin said, "You can stop Uchiha from launching a coup, but can you stop Danzo from attacking Uchiha? At this point, the village elders will no longer trust you, and I'm afraid that Danzo will never see you again in private." Jishui seemed to understand something, and a look of disbelief appeared on her face. Chapter 79. Jishui didn't expect the situation to be so serious, and suddenly felt a little flustered. He always felt that what he did was right, and those crazy clansmen were all wrong, but after listening to Hyojin's words, he faintly realized that his behavior of confessing to the village's top leaders had inadvertently pushed Uchiha into the abyss. Bowing deeply to Hyojin, Jishui said sincerely, "Senpai, I will never use Kodoematsukami on my companions, please believe me on this point." Hyojin shook his head. "This has nothing to do with believing or not. Facing a person who can change their will at any time, no matter who it is, they will feel instinctive fear and scruples, even I am no exception." Jishui was a little lost. "But whether you are loyal to me or not, whether you are upright or kind, as long as you have the ability to control the will of others, you will be a threat in the eyes of others." After a slight pause, Hyojin sighed. "In the end, this forbidden technique of Kodoematsukami is really too uncomfortable." By now, Jishui has realized what the key point of the matter is, so he hurriedly asked, "Senpai, then, is there any way to remedy it?" Hyojin held his chin with one hand and pondered for a while, then said, "I don't have any good ideas for the time being, but you'd better not do anything unnecessary. At present, the peace talks between the village and Cloud Village have not been completed, so we won't do anything to Uchiha for the time being. As for the future, let's talk about it in the future. Jishui's problem lies with Kotoame Tsukumi. As long as his Manjikyu Sharingan is still in his eye socket, it will be impossible for him to be completely accepted by the village's top leaders. Jishui nodded silently. Thinking of the obsidian who has been stirring up trouble outside the village, Hyojin said, "By the way, pay more attention to whether there are any suspicious people near your clan's land." "You mean?" "During the Nine Tails rebellion a year ago, although I was not in the village, the information I collected showed that the Nine Tails were indeed controlled by Sharingan." Jishui's expression turned ugly. "Senior, are you suspecting that the Nine Tails rebellion was planned by our Uchiha? The facts are in front of us. It's inevitable that Uchiha will be suspected." Glancing at Jishui, Hyojin continued, "And even if Uchiha did it, it might not necessarily be the Uchiha from the village." Jishui suddenly thought of something and fell into deep thought. In the history of Uchiha in recent decades, there were many people who left the village or disappeared for no reason. The most famous one was Madara, who established my village with the first generation, Uchiha. Therefore, it is possible that there are Uchiha descendants outside my village. After the two chatted for a while, Jishui said goodbye and left. Looking at Jishui's departing figure, Hyojin shook his head. As the most talented ninja of Uchiha's generation, Jishui is almost impeccable in other aspects, but he is still too naive when it comes to figuring out the human heart. In Hyojin's previous life, Jishui is almost invincible in one-on-one combat, and the reason why he died so easily is because of his personality. Naruto Building, a small conference room. 3 generations were discussing the peace talks between the village and Kumo Village with the 3 elders of the advisory group. When the secret mission of Umbu Team 11 was mentioned, 3 generations clapped their hands. Kakashi, who was waiting for the inquiry outside the conference room, walked in and told the 3 elders of the advisory group what he knew about how Team 11 completed the mission. When Kakashi finished, 3 generations said lightly, "You can leave now." Kakashi nodded and left the conference room. Zhuan Xiaochun said, "It turns out that Team 11 harassed Kumo Village's transport line in the rear, forcing Kumo Village to slow down their offensive. This time Team 11 has made a great contribution to the village." Mito Hamura on the side also echoed, "Well, we can consider promoting and rewarding Class 11. At this time, Danzo suddenly said, "The news I received from the route is not like this." Not only the 2 advisors, but 3 generations also looked at Danzo, waiting for his next words. Danzo said coldly, "Kumo Village suddenly slowed down their offensive because they suffered heavy losses in the rear. It is said that more than 300 Kumo ninjas, including several elite Jonin ninjas, died in one night. Even 4 generations Liang was forced to leave Kumo Village because of this." The 2 consultants Koharu and Mito Hamura looked at each other. When 3 generations heard this, they immediately remembered Jishui, who took the initiative to confess to them yesterday that he awakened Manjikyu Sharingan. Their faces suddenly sank, and they didn't say anything for a long time. Danzo got up and asked, "Why didn't Team 11 report this? Why did they hide such a feat?" Zhuan Xiaochun asked 3 generations seriously, "Does Team 11 really have such combat power?" The 4 members of Team 11 were able to annihilate more than 300 Kumo ninjas in one night, which means that at least one of the 4 members of Team 11 has the strength of a Kage. 3 generations had to say helplessly, "Uchiha Jishui awakened the legendary Manjikyu Sharingan." Zhuan Xiaochun was taken aback and immediately frowned. "That's the legendary cursed power, someone in the Uchiha clan has awakened it?" Hamura whispered to himself, "It won't be another Uchiha Madara, right?" Danzo didn't stop and continued to say, "Hyzen, you seem to have said less. 3 generations stared at Danzo with sharp eyes. Danzo, who was being stared at by 3 generations, was not afraid at all and said, Uchiha Jishui's Manjikyu Sharingan can perform a forbidden technique called Kodo Amatsukami, which can instantly change the will of the user and turn them into a puppet. What? Koharu and Mito Hamura turned pale with fright. Glancing at the shocked faces of the two, Danzo smiled coldly and said, I propose that we immediately take coercive measures against Uchiha Jishui. After a short period of shock, Zhuan Shao-chun and Hamura also echoed, I agree. 3 generations shook their heads firmly. Jishui is the bridge of communication between us and Uchiha. If we take coercive measures against him, it will stimulate the Uchiha clan. Now the peace talks between the village and Kumo are at a critical moment. If there is a riot in the village, the consequences will be unimaginable. Danzo seems to have expected 3 generations to say this, so he took a step back and said, then put Uchiha Jishui on the watch list, and let Root be responsible for monitoring him. After a moment of silence, 3 generations finally nodded. Chapter 80. Without waiting for 3 generations to speak, Hamura pushed his glasses and said, Kakashi is a disciple of Minato, there is no need to doubt his loyalty. As the son of my white fan, the disciple of 4 generations Naruto, and the hero of Mai in the 3rd Shinobi World War, Kakashi has too many honors. If even he has to be questioned, then no ninja in the village will not be questioned. Sandaime-sama nodded. I will conduct the relevant questioning of Team 11 in private. There is no need to monitor all of them. They are trustworthy Konoha ninjas. Trustworthy? Danzo smiled coldly and said, Hyojin is an old subordinate of Orochimaru. Who can be sure that he is not a spy of Orochimaru in the village? Letting such a person stay in the Umbu, Hyzen, you are too careless. 3 generations was a bit disgusted with Danzo mentioning the past again. Danzo, there is no need to mention the past. Danzo insisted. He is a person on the purge list. Such a person must not be allowed to stay in the Umbu. If you insist on going your own way, then I can only arrange for Gen to secretly monitor him. 3 generations were silent. The fact that Kuroto has been on the purge list is like a thorn in Sandaime-sama's heart, making him unable to fully trust Kuroto, because no matter who it is that has been on the purge list and has been abandoned by the village, their loyalty will inevitably be greatly reduced. Seeing 3 generations acquiesce, Danzo did not say anything more. Collecting oxen? Hissing Ren after saying goodbye to Jishui, Hyojin went to the Death Forest alone. Not long after Yangming entered the Forest of Death, the small wild boar that tested the poison for him came out from the dense bushes and ran toward him. It spun around and sniffed his trousers. How did it grow so big? Looking at the little wild boar, Hyojin was a little confused. It had only been a little more than a month, and the little wild boar that used to be a cub had now grown several times bigger. Its size was almost taller than Hyojin's waist. After taking a closer look, Hyojin realized that the little wild boar's skin was not intact at all. It was covered in wounds and its fur was sparse. It seemed like it often fought with the other wild beasts in the Forest of Death. Injured to this extent, but still ignorant, as if nothing happened, really worthy of being a pig. After sighing with emotion, Hyojin activated the white eye. He carefully looked around and made sure there was no one hiding around and there was no unusual reaction from chakra. Then, he slowly closed his eyes. When he opened his eyes again, the pupils in his eye sockets had turned into a magnificent sapphire blue. Then, he slowly printed and shouted, Tenseigan chakra mode! Wow! The sky blue chakra instantly wrapped his body, lifting his whole body and hanging it in the air. The little wild boar on the side didn't panic too much. It carefully leaned forward and sniffed with its nose. It found that the smell didn't change, so it pouted its buttocks and circled around Hyojin. It seemed to be waiting for him to feed it. Hyojin smiled slightly and didn't care about the little wild boar. He concentrated on feeling the Tenseigan chakra mode. Although he had entered the Tenseigan chakra mode in the Country of Thunder before, and even activated the Silver Wheel reincarnation explosion, transformed by the truth-seeking ball, it was on the battlefield after all, and the duration was very short, so Hyojin was not familiar with the Tenseigan chakra mode at all. He was not even familiar with the consumption of the Tenseigan chakra mode. Now that he is hiding in the Death Forest, Kuroto will be able to experience the Tenseigan chakra mode without any interference, and he will also be able to test the various abilities and consumption of the Tenseigan chakra mode. Slowly falling to the ground, Hyojin in the Tenseigan chakra mode pointed to the ground with one hand and poured the Tenseigan chakra mode into the ground. Soon, with him as the center, all the chakra reactions within a radius of nearly 10 miles were fed back to his mind through his Tenseigan chakra. The chakra perception area has increased by nearly 10 times. Secretly overjoyed, Suijin poured chakra into the Tenseigan again and looked around with rapt attention. With the support of sufficient chakra, his Tenseigan immediately bloomed with unparalleled magnificent light. At first glance, it looked like two bright gems. At this time, in his field of vision, everything is clearly visible, even the patterns on the wings of moths tens of meters away are as close as they are in front of him. Turning his head and glancing at the little wild boar hanging around him, Hyojin suddenly found that the chakra in its body has grown a lot during this time, but several meridians are still a little stagnant and have not been completely connected. Hyojin raised the corner of his mouth and waved at the little wild boar. In an instant, the little wild boar involuntarily flew towards Hyojin. No matter how it struggled, there was no way to get rid of the traction of rain wheel pull. After calling the little wild boar to his hand, Hyojin reached out and gently pressed on its abdomen, and instilled the Tenseigan chakra a little bit. With the entry of the Tenseigan chakra, the chakra in the little wild boar's body instantly grew several times, and the previously stagnant meridians were also connected under this powerful chakra. "You helped me test the poison for so long, just now it's your hard work." Hyojin, who was in a good mood, smiled faintly. The little wild boar, who has connected all the meridians in its body, groaned and staggered as if it was drunk. Ignoring the little wild boar, Hyojin concentrated on activating the truth-seeking ball. Unlike the last time when he could summon 9 truth-seeking balls, this time without the support of the giant Tenseigan, Hyojin used a lot of strength to summon 1 truth-seeking ball. Moreover, he can even faintly feel that once he activates this truth-seeking ball, his own chakra will be consumed rapidly. While playing with the truth-seeking ball in his hand, Hyojin thought to himself, "If I only maintain the Tenseigan chakra mode, my own chakra can last for about 10 minutes, but if I use the truth-seeking ball to activate the Golden Wheel reincarnation explosion and the Silver Wheel reincarnation explosion, my chakra may be consumed in an instant." Hyojin has long been indifferent to his own lack of aptitude. From the time of the ninja school to the time of the Third Shinobi War, he has always been invisible in the eyes of others, but so what, he still reached this step. In today's shinobi world, how many people can play with truth-seeking balls like this? He had already flung many people who had been in front of him far behind him. Chapter 81. Collecting his thoughts, Hyojin looked at the truth-seeking ball in his hand. The essence of the truth-seeking ball should be a highly condensed sphere of chakra, and its nature includes yang, yin, and other 5 elements of chakra. In theory, the truth-seeking ball has the ability to change all matter. Therefore, its essence surpasses the ninjutsu of a single chakra attribute, the Kekkei limit of 2 chakra attributes, and the Kekkei elimination of 3 chakra attribute. This is a qualitative difference, and except for a few cases, the truth-seeking ball is almost unsolvable. Because of this, after mastering the Tenseigan chakra mode, an idea flashed in Hyojin's mind. If he can't successfully master the Uzumaki Fuinjutsu in the end, then he can use the truth-seeking ball in the Tenseigan chakra mode to forcibly break the seal imposed by the 4 generations on the dragon vein. But after trying it today, he dispelled this idea. First of all, in the shinobi world, Fuinjutsu is too strange and unpredictable. Almost anything that is known can be sealed, whether it is a variety of powerful tailed beasts and demons, or the products between life and death after the Edo reincarnation, or illusory things such as souls, all are no exception. Even the ancestor of chakra, Otsutsuki Kagaya, is not immune to the Fuinjutsu. Therefore, Hyojin can't say for sure whether his truth-seeking ball can break the seal imposed by the 4 generations on the dragon vein. Secondly, based on the consumption of truth-seeking ball, even if Hyojin's truth-seeking ball can really break the seal imposed by the 4 generations on the dragon vein, he will inevitably exhaust all the chakra in his body. And once the 4 generations Fuinjutsu fails, the huge amount of chakra in the dragon vein will gush out. At that time, even if Suijin mastered all the sealing techniques on the scroll of the artificial tailed beast, without chakra, he would only be able to do nothing but watch from the sidelines. In that state, it was impossible to subdue the huge amount of dragon vein chakra that had escaped. But if he can't steal the chakra of the dragon vein in a very short time, then the reaction of the chakra of the dragon vein without the seal will definitely attract the attention of the surrounding villages, especially the nearby sand crypsis. At that time, Hyojin would not be able to eat the fish and would instead be covered in fish. While Hyojin was secretly thinking, he suddenly sensed a chakra approaching rapidly, so he immediately exited the Tenseigan chakra mode. Not long after, an Umbu ninja landed in front of Hyojin and said, "Naruto-sama summons you." Hyojin nodded and followed the Umbu out of the Death Forest, all the way to the Naruto building. After entering Naruto's office, Kuroto discovered that 3 generations had not only summoned him, but also the other 3 members of Team 11 were also in Naruto's office at this moment. Seeing that everyone had arrived, 3 generations put down his pipe and swept a sharp gaze over the 4 members of Team 11 and asked, "About the secret mission report, did your Team 11 conceal anything?" Kakashi's expression became solemn. Kuroto thought that 3 generations was referring to his awakening of the Manjikyu Sharingan, so he felt a little guilty. Regarding this matter, Team 11 has actually reached a consensus, and that is to keep it a secret for the time being. Because no one knows what the Uchiha clan will do if they learn that an outsider has awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, so everyone in Team 11, including Jishuei who is a member of the Uchiha clan, is willing to conceal the matter of Kakashi's awakening of the Manjikyu Sharingan, lest the Uchiha clan do something extreme after receiving the news and intensify the conflict between Uchiha and the village. Guy directly lowered his head, not daring to look directly into the eyes of 3 generations. He also thought that 3 generations was referring to Kakashi's awakening of the Manjikyu Sharingan. Hyojin and Jishuei were relatively calm, because both of them knew that 3 generations was most likely referring to the incident where Hyojin wiped out the entire valley and slaughtered hundreds of cloud ninjas. Seeing the 4 members of Team 11 remained silent, Sandaime-sama directly threw the information he obtained from Shimura Danzo in front of them and said in a serious tone, "See for yourself." After reading the information, both Kakashi and Guy were taken aback, and immediately looked at Hyojin and Jishuei in surprise. Because during the Battle of the Valley, it was Hyojin and Jishuei who brought up the rear, and later Hyojin and Jishuei didn't even mention the details of the battle to them. So when they saw the information mentioned such as the entire valley was razed to the ground, hundreds of ninjas died without a trace, and so on, it can be imagined how shocked the 2 of them were. Hyojin looked through the information and muttered to himself, "Sure enough, this is what happened." Jishuei suddenly stood up and said, "Naruto-sama, this matter was done by me, but in order to conceal the existence of the Manjikyu Sharingan, I didn't mention it in the mission report. 3 generations didn't speak, but looked at Kakashi as the captain of Team 11. Jishui quickly explained, "At that time, Captain Kakashi was unconscious, so Captain didn't know about it." 3 generations nodded, picked up his pipe and took a puff. In the view of 3 generations, if there is anyone in Team 11 who has the strength to slaughter hundreds of cloud ninjas in one night, then it can only be Jishui, who has awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan. As for Kakashi, Hyojin, and Guy, 3 generations recognized the 3 of them as excellent ninjas, but they don't think that they have the strength of a Kage. Now that the matter has been made clear, don't mention it again in the future. After finalizing the matter, 3 generations continued. This time, your Team 11 did a good job and made a great contribution to the village, so the village has decided to reward you with an additional opportunity to learn advanced ninjutsu. You don't need to make a decision right now, you can come to me at any time after thinking about it. The 4 members of Team 11 nodded in unison, then left Naruto's office one after another. After walking out of the Naruto building, Guy hurriedly asked, "Jishui, did you really kill hundreds of cloud ninjas by yourself?" Jishui glanced at Hyojin, then nodded to Guy. At this time, Kakashi said in a low voice, "Thank you." Although he was shocked by Jishui's strength, Kakashi was even more grateful to Jishui for keeping his Manjikyu Sharingan a secret. Jishui shook his head. "I just did it for the sake of the Uchiha clan, that's all." When she learned that Kakashi had awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, even Jishui herself had a strong negative emotion. It can be imagined that once this news is leaked to the Uchiha clan, the consequences would be unimaginable. The 4 chatted for a while, then Guy pulled Kakashi to spar, while Hyojin and Jishui walked to a secluded place. Glancing thoughtfully behind him, Hyojin whispered, "Thank you." Chapter 82. Looking at Jishui's tired face, Hyojin said, "Don't worry, things will definitely turn for the better." Jishui said, "I hope so. The reason why the village is pressing Uchiha step by step is actually a reflection of the village's own weakness. And the initiator of all this is not a bystander, it is Uchiha Obsidian who has been watching Mai in the dark and trying to bite him at any time. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to describe the current 3rd generation as mentally and physically exhausted. Because of the growth of age, the strength of 3 generations has begun to decline from the peak. If his carefully selected successor 4 generations didn't die in battle, this would be nothing. But with the unexpected death of the 4th generation heir in the prime of his life, everything changed. The current trouble in front of Mai, whether it is the Cloud Village outside the village or the Uchiha Obsidian inside the village, can be said to be the aftermath caused by the accidental death of 4 generations. If 4 generations were still there, Nine-Tails' human Jinchuriki was still there, Cloud Village wouldn't dare to move at all, and Uchiha wouldn't dare to have any crooked thoughts. Mai's subsequent series of bad luck may have disappeared. Then 4 generations died, so Mai was in chaos. Glancing behind him, Hyojin then whispered, "Someone is following us." Jishui nodded. "Well, I found it when I came." After a little thought, Hyojin said, "It should be the root of Danzo. Squad 11 is the Umbu of Naruto. They are the only ones who follow and monitor others, no one will follow and monitor them. Because if Naruto doesn't trust them, he will directly remove their identity as Umbu, instead of sending other Umbu to monitor them." Jishui said calmly, "I won't harm the village, I'm not afraid of their monitoring." Hyojin said, "You think things are too simple." Jishui asked curiously, "Senpai, what do you mean?" "Monitoring is a signal, this not only shows that Danzo doesn't trust us, but also that he is not afraid of us." After a pause, Hyojin's mouth slightly raised. "He can distrust us, but he can't be afraid of us." Jishui has always mistakenly believed that Hyojin in the state of chakra is the normal strength of Hyojin, so in his eyes, Hyojin is the strongest in Mai. Even Naruto 3 generations or Jiraiya is inferior to Hyojin. So listening to Hyojin, he immediately asked worriedly, Senpai, you don't really want to do anything to Danzo-sama, do you? Seeing the terrified look on Homusubi's face, Kuroda knew that Homusubi wouldn't dare to do anything to Konoha's higher-ups, so he said, You don't need to do anything, just keep it a secret for me. Those who are really afraid of Danzo, to put it bluntly, are those my ninjas who will not defect, and for those ninjas who have the option of defecting, Danzo is nothing. In a dense forest outside my village. Fire release. Great fireball jutsu. After releasing the fire release jutsu, Uchiha Shinichi knelt on the ground panting, but soon he stood up again and threw the shuriken at the target in the distance. For the whole morning, he has been practicing hard, even if his clothes were soaked with sweat, he didn't have the slightest intention of stopping. Since the last time he challenged Hyojin and was carried back by Jishuei, he has become the laughing stock of the Uchiha clan, falling into the endless ridicule and doubt of his clansmen. This kind of pain almost drove him crazy. Since that day, he rarely returned to the village, and whenever he has free time, he would come here and numb his nerves with heavy practice. In the distance, staring at the crazy practice of Uchiha Shinichi, the masked man sitting cross-legged on a branch said lightly, Are you talking about him? On the branch, Zetsu nodded and said, I can feel the hatred in his heart. As an investigator of Akatsuki, Zetsu's perception is outstanding in the entire shinobi world, and because of some special reasons, he can even perceive the emotions of his targets. The masked man seemed to be reminded of something, and his tone was still cold. This kind of hatred is far from enough. Zetsu said, This is the most suitable target that I can find for you at present. Most of the ninjas of the Uchiha clan are working in the police force, so under normal circumstances, the ninjas of the Uchiha clan rarely leave the village. Only Uchiha Shinichi is an exception, coupled with the fact that Uchiha Shinichi has the Sharingan of the 3 Tomo, as well as the strength of a Tokubetsu Jonin, and his heart is full of hatred. Zetsu immediately reported the information to the masked man. The masked man hesitated for a moment and finally nodded. It's him, you wait here, I'll go see him. After saying that, the masked man's body twisted into a whirlpool and disappeared silently. After a while, the masked man appeared behind Shinichi Uchiha and said with a hoarse and deep voice, Young Uchiha, what a mess! Shinichi Uchiha was shocked, and he quickly turned around and jumped away. Who are you? The masked man smiled. Who I am is not important, but I can give you what you want. Uchiha Shinichi was infuriated. What kind of person do you think I am? Who do you think I am? I am Shinichi Uchiha Uchiha. The masked man slowly opened his arms, and his tone was still calm. You are nothing. Shinichi Uchiha, who was deeply insulted, could no longer hold it in. He pulled out his short knife and pounced on the masked man. Seeing that the masked man stood there dumbly without dodging, a smile appeared on Shinichi Uchiha's ferocious face. Go to hell. However, when the knife hit the masked man, it went straight through his body. The feeling from the handle clearly told Shinichi Uchiha that his knife did not hit anything. This? Shinichi Uchiha punched him in the stomach, while the masked man was still in shock. Shinichi Uchiha, who was knocked to the ground, still looked at the masked man in disbelief. I clearly hit you just now, why did you? Is it an illusion? Thinking that he had guessed the truth, the 3 Tomo in Shinichi Uchiha's eyes started to spin rapidly. The masked man said lightly, You keep calling me Uchiha, Uchiha, is that all you have? Shinichi Uchiha clenched his teeth and said, I have broken your illusion. As he spoke, he stood up, quickly formed a seal with both hands, and shouted, Fire release, great fireball technique. In an instant, a huge fireball flew towards the masked man. Boom, accompanied by a row of trees was hit by the fireball and burned into charcoal. After careful observation, there was no sign of the masked man. Shinichi Uchiha mumbled. Is he dead? Chapter 83. It didn't take long for the distorted space vortex to appear again. Uchiha Shinichi was thrown out of the whirlpool and fell heavily on the ground. Half of his face was buried in the soil, and he looked extremely miserable. Uchiha Shinichi's body was full of injuries, and he was thrown out of the whirlpool and fell heavily on the ground with half of his face buried in the soil. At that moment, the masked man walked out of the distorted vortex and said calmly, "Can't you even stand up?" Uchiha Shinichi struggled to lift his head and glared at the masked man. His eyes were filled with stubbornness and hatred. The masked man crossed his arms in front of his chest and said with a smile, "Not bad." Uchiha Shinichi coughed and asked in a hoarse voice, "You? Who are you? What kind of ninjutsu was that?" "I've said it before. It doesn't matter who I am." After a pause, the masked man said with a smile, "What's important is that I can give you what you want." Uchiha Shinichi was confused. "What I want?" The masked man looked around and shrugged. "Why are you cultivating here?" Uchiha Shinichi said a name, Hyojin. The masked man was stunned. He then asked with a smile, "Is this person powerful?" Although he was reluctant, Uchiha Shinichi nodded helplessly. "Uchiha lost to the Hyuga family." The masked man smiled and continued to tempt him. "With your talent, it's not difficult to defeat the person called Hyojin." Uchiha Shinichi stared at the masked man vigilantly. He opened his mouth but did not say anything. His face was filled with hesitation. Seeing that Uchiha Shinichi was tempted, the masked man did not push him too hard. Instead, he spread his hands and said, "You can find me here if you've made up your mind." With that, the masked man disappeared into the vortex. Uchiha Shinichi struggled to stand up. He looked around in panic, then dragged his wounded body and staggered towards the village. Not long after, the masked man returned to the tree. Zetsu, who had half of his body sticking out, looked at the back of Uchiha and Shinichi as they left and said, "Is there a need to go to such an extent? It's very likely that he told me about it." The masked man shook his head. "He won't." "Why?" "Because he craves power." The masked man sat down cross-legged and continued, "He's more talented than I expected. With some stimulation, he might be able to awaken those eyes." Hyojin's home. After returning home, Hyojin concentrated his mind and seriously studied the four symbols seal again. Perhaps it's because he carefully felt the truth-seeking ball. Kuroto has a deeper understanding of the changes in the chakra attribute, so when he opened the scroll of the four symbols seal this time, the things that he didn't understand before suddenly became clear. The changes in chakra's attributes are both the foundation and the core of the four symbols seal. Once the changes in chakra's attributes in the four symbols seal are integrated, then it's not far from completely mastering the four symbols seal. After studying for a while, Hyojin took a sip of tea and thought to himself, "At this rate, I'll be able to completely master the four symbols seal in 3 days at most." Thinking of the promise he made to Class 11 3 generations ago, he suddenly felt that mastering the Whirlpool clan's sealing technique was not that far away. Suddenly, Hyojin seemed to notice something. His brows slightly furrowed, and he activated the Byakugan. In the vision of the Byakugan, there was a faint chakra hidden behind a big tree outside the courtyard. Judging from the chakra's amount, it was at least at the level of a Tokubetsu Jonin. They're already openly monitoring the door. Obviously, the root who was responsible for monitoring Hyojin knew that Hyojin had the Byakugan, and knew that no matter how he disguised himself, he couldn't escape the detection of the Byakugan, so he simply put the surveillance in the open. "I'm a subordinate of Naruto Zumbu. Without the consent of the 3 generations, the Danzo wouldn't do things so crudely." After a while, Hyojin continued to think, "Now is not the time to turn hostile, let's wait until I learn the sealing technique. The 3 generations and the Danzo are different. As the shadow of the village, the three generations are still very concerned about their face. Since the three generations promised the whole class a chance to learn advanced ninjutsu, as long as Hyojin doesn't act recklessly, the three generations will definitely fulfill their promise. After making up his mind, Hyojin didn't go anywhere and wholeheartedly studied the four symbols seal at home. 3 days passed in a flash. As Kuroto expected, after mastering the trick, Kuroto quickly understood the key parts of the four symbols seal. Although there are still a few details that he hasn't fully understood, but these details will take time and effort to figure out little by little, so it can't be rushed. With the scroll of the four symbols seal in hand, Hyojin came to Naruto's office. After returning the scroll, he once again made a request to the three generations to learn the sealing technique, and considering that this might be his last official learning opportunity, he didn't hide it and directly told the three generations that he wanted to learn the Uzumaki clan's sealing technique. Regarding Hyojin's request, the three generations had some doubts. But in Sandaime-sama's opinion, Kuroto's request to learn Fuinjutsu is better than Fuinjutsu. After all, Fuinjutsu is more inclined towards defense, and even if Kuroto mastered the Fuinjutsu of the Uzumaki clan, it wouldn't pose much harm to the village. Moreover, apart from the ghoul seal, which was a forbidden technique that could perish together with the enemy, the other powerful sealing techniques of the Vortex clan often required the bloodline of the Vortex clan to be used. After thinking about it, the three generations finally took out a scroll called Contract Seal from the secret database and gave it to Hyojin, and ordered him to return the scroll within a month. After obtaining the contract seal, Hyojin continued to stay at home and didn't go out, wholeheartedly studying the contract seal. Compared to the wide range of uses of the four symbols seal, the scope of application of the contract seal was much narrower. It was mainly used to block the contractual relationship between the enemy and the psychic item. But this didn't mean that the contract seal was inferior to the four symbols seal. On the contrary, Hyojin vaguely felt that the sealing technique that the four generations used to seal the dragon vein contained part of the content of the contract seal. This was because when Hyojin first got the scroll of the contract seal, he realized that the isolation ability of the contract seal was very strong, and the dragon vein and the Lulon Queen's bloodline had an inexplicable relationship. No one knew if there was some kind of contractual relationship between them. Chapter 84. When it comes to contracts, it will involve the soul, bloodline, and other illusory and indescribable things, so the difficulty of learning contract seal is no less than that of the four symbols seal. However, the current Hyojin is no longer a rookie when it comes to seal technique. After the guidance of the Miko of the Land of Demons, as well as the in-depth study of the four symbols seal, Kuroto's current attainments in seal techniques can barely be regarded as minor achievements. Especially when it comes to Uzumaki seals, it is not too much of an exaggeration to say that Kuroto is half an expert. After half a day of serious study, Kuroto estimated that it will take at least 7 days to completely master contract seal. Fortunately, the Konoha and Kumo village are currently discussing peace talks, so Team 11 has no task, so 7 days is not too long or too short for him. After another 4 days, all the members of Team 11 suddenly came to Hyojin's house together. Glancing at Kakashi, Jishuei, and Guy, Hyojin smiled and said, "Why did you all come to my house together?" Guy is an impatient person, so he immediately said, "Kuroto, have you heard?" Hyojin casually replied, "Heard what?" For the past few days, he has been staying at home and studying contract seal wholeheartedly, to the point where he doesn't pay attention to the outside world. Guy hurriedly said, "It's about the negotiation between the Konoha and Kumo." At this time, Jishuei also said, "Kuroto-san, the peace talks between the Konoha and Kumo have broken down." Hyojin was a little surprised. "What? In his previous life, when the Konoha and Kumo signed the peace agreement, there was indeed a mess where Kumo's negotiator kidnapped the daughter of the Hyuga clan. But at that time, the peace agreement between the Konoha and Kumo had basically been negotiated. Now, the peace talks have broken down before they even finished, which really puzzled Hyojin. Soon, Kakashi, as the captain of Team 11, explained the ins and outs of the matter in detail. It turned out that it was not only Mai's side who was dissatisfied with the peace talks, but many people in Kumo's side were also dissatisfied with the peace talks. They believed that as long as they persisted, Mai's position as the #1 shinobi village in the shinobi world could be pulled down. In a situation where both sides had grievances, the peace talks naturally couldn't continue. Hyojin pondered for a moment, then smiled and said, "You don't have to worry too much, we in Cloud Village can't fight anymore. The 3 generations and Lei Ying are well aware of this, so the peace talks will continue." Guy asked curiously, "Why are you so sure?" Hyojin smiled and said, "There are not only 2 shinobi villages in the shinobi world. If we fight each other, it would only benefit other shinobi villages in the end." Regardless of whether it was the blurry memories from his previous life, or the summary of various aspects of information in this life, Hyojin is sure that Cloud Village's surprise attack on Mai was just a test. If Mai doesn't have much power to fight back, then they will definitely go all out. But once Konoha proves that they are not a lamb that can be slaughtered by others, then Kumo's test this time will have a result, and there will be no need for them to continue to take risks for other shinobi villages. After sending off the members of Team 11, Hyojin's side, it seems that the peace talks between Konoha and Cloud Village will be extremely long. Although it is known that the 2 sides will eventually sign a peace agreement, the peace talks will probably fall into a long stalemate before the grievances between the 2 sides are appeased. But for Hyojin, there are only advantages and no disadvantages. As long as the negotiations with Cloud Village continue, it is impossible for Konoha to take the risk of chaos and attack Uchiha, so Uchiha can be temporarily maintained as a shield. Hyojin mastered the contract seal 5 days later than expected. The main reason for this is that he didn't have the opportunity to practice. Before studying the 4 symbols seal, he could use anything at home to practice the sealing technique, but the contract seal is different. It requires a real contract-related object to be used as the target of the sealing technique. Therefore, Hyojin can't find a suitable object to practice on. Fortunately, the scroll given to him by the 3 generations clearly explained the key points of the contract seal, so even if he doesn't practice, he can still barely master it. When Hyojin returned the contract seal scroll to the 3 generations, the 3 generations were taken aback. The 3 generations thought that it would take at least a month for Hyojin to master the contract seal, but they didn't expect that it only took Hyojin 13 days to return the scroll. In his memory, it took the 4 generations nearly 15 days to master this technique. Therefore, the 3 generations couldn't help but think highly of Hyojin, thinking that Hyojin is a rare sealing technique genius. After returning the scroll, Hyojin then made a request to go out and travel. The 3 generations looked at Kuroto and asked, "Why do you have such an idea?" Hyojin has already thought of an excuse: "I want to find a suitable summon beast." In Mai, it is not unusual for a ninja to go out and travel. Jiraiya is a typical example because he is almost not in the village all year round. But going out and traveling needs the approval of the village. On this point, even Jiraiya is no exception. Otherwise, he will be regarded as a betrayal by the village. Of course, if the background is strong enough and the strength is strong enough, like Tsunadeheim, then it is not called betrayal, but running away. As an Umbu directly under Naruto, it is reasonable to say that Hyojin is not qualified to apply to go out and travel, especially at this critical juncture when the village is negotiating peace with Cloud Village. Therefore, Hyojin had to come up with a reason that the 3 generations can't refuse. Because the summon beast is related to the combat power of a ninja, Finding a suitable summon beast naturally became a legitimate reason for most ninjas to go out and travel in Mai. After pondering for a long time, the 3 generations loosened their mouths and said, "I can only give you 2 months of vacation." After thanking the 3 generations, Hyojin hurriedly returned home, took the prepared salute and walked towards the village gate alone. The main purpose of this trip is nothing else but to see what kind of seal 4 generations put on the dragon vein and try to crack it. As long as it is confirmed that the seal imposed on the dragon vein by 4 generations can be broken, his artificial-tailed beast plan can immediately be launched. After registering at the village gate, Hyojin left the village without looking back, and the root member who was responsible for monitoring him had to bite the bullet and follow him. I have to find a way to get rid of him. Aware of the tail behind him, Hyojin secretly pondered. Suddenly, a chain sprang up from the ground and firmly wrapped around Hyojin, who was walking. Almost at the same time, a figure rushed out of the trees on both sides, one on the left and one on the right, stabbed the sword in their hands into Hyojin's ribs. Chapter 85. Seeing that his attack had succeeded, the attacker on the other side smiled sinisterly and said, "Big brother, this 25 million tails guy is nothing. Didn't we kill him in an instant?" Bang! As soon as his voice fell, Hyojin, who was pierced by 2 sharp blades in his ribs, turned into a cloud of smoke. The 2 attackers were stunned at the same time. Shadow clone? At this time, a figure suddenly fell from the sky and directly stepped on the heads of the 2, 1 foot, the 2 attackers were trampled to the ground. This figure is Hyojin. He stepped on the heads of the 2 and slowly squatted down and said helplessly, "Hey, is my name not written on the bounty? You 2 are just squatting in the grass like that, aren't you looking down on me too much? Damn it. How can it be a shadow clone?" The 2 bounty ninjas who couldn't move with their heads still couldn't believe what they were seeing. Hyojin's face turned cold as he thought to himself, is the deterrent power of the Hyuga family in the ninja world so weak? In his opinion, since his name is written on the bounty, then the bounty ninjas who dared to accept the bounty should know that he is a Byakugan Kekai Genkai. But these 2 bounty ninjas don't seem to have any concept of Byakugan. And their skills are not weak, judging from the ambush just now, both of them are at least Chunin level. This made Hyojin a little uncertain. He doesn't know whether these 2 bounty ninjas are too ignorant, or the Hyuga family doesn't have much deterrent power left in the ninja world. After tying up the 2 bounty ninjas, Hyojin returned to the village. In the mission center of the village, Kuroto learned that these 2 guys are traitorous ninjas of the Mist Village. After defecting from the village, they committed all sorts of crimes and committed a lot of crimes, so they also carry a bounty of nearly 3 million ryo on their heads. At the same time, Hyojin also learned that the Mist Village has recently fallen into internal strife. It is said that several of the Mist shinobi clans directly participated in the rebellion, and the entire Mist Village was in chaos, so a large number of Mist shinobi defected. Some became wandering ninjas, and some became bounty ninjas. After solving the matter of the bounty nin, Hyojin didn't delay and once again left the village. Walking on the road, he didn't seem to be very happy even though he had just received a huge windfall. On the contrary, the expression on his face gradually became cold. When he was attacked, he was worried that the enemy would launch a follow-up attack. So his real body had been hiding in the dark and carefully observing the surroundings. Because of this, Kuroto noticed that when he was attacked, the root ninja who was responsible for monitoring him didn't have the slightest intention to help him. No matter what, everyone was a ninja from the same village. His own people were attacked, but he didn't seem to care. This undoubtedly shows that the root ninja is not only monitoring Hyojin, but also treating Hyojin as an enemy. After realizing this, the killing intent in Hyojin's heart was boiling. At first, Kuroto just thought that the root ninja was just obeying orders and couldn't help himself, so he just wanted to get rid of him. There was no need to kill him, but now his thinking has changed. In the evening, Hyojin chose a flat place in the forest as a campsite, then lit a campfire and ate roasted rabbit meat while resting. Not far away, the root ninja who was responsible for monitoring Hyojin was sitting on a branch of a big tree, leaning against the trunk, looking in the direction of the campfire. Humph, he actually lit a campfire. His vigilance is too low. How can such a person be qualified to be an umbu? The root ninja chewed the dry food he carried with him while cursing in his heart. The code name of this root ninja is Kurodo, and he is very familiar with this kind of task, because he has only performed two kinds of tasks. One is surveillance and the other is assassination. And these two kinds of tasks can often be regarded as the same kind of task, because the target he is responsible for monitoring will eventually become the target he wants to assassinate. Suddenly, Kurodo felt a killing intent. With many years of experience in assassination, he was keenly aware that something was staring at him. Ninjutsu, fake beast painting. Almost subconsciously, he rose into the air, while turning over and jumping down from the tree. He took out a pen and paper in mid-air and quickly drew an ink bird. Whoosh, however, before he could land on the ink bird, two iron spears quickly pierced through the ink bird, turning it into a ball of ink that splattered everywhere in midair. Landing awkwardly on the ground, Dingyu discovered that the one who attacked him was a mysterious ninja wrapped in bandages, and he couldn't make out the slightest bit of his appearance. Then, he noticed the iron sand floating around the mysterious ninja, and was suddenly shocked. Magnet release? As a member of the Root, Kurodo has heard of all kinds of strange bloodstains and secret techniques, so he recognized this unique kekai of the Sand Crypsis at a glance. Kurodo asked nervously, "Who are you?" Even in the Sand Crypsis, there are very few ninjas who have mastered magnet release. Present, only the missing 3 generations of Kazekage and the current 4 generations of Kazekage are well known. Kurodo doesn't think that the 3 generations of Kazekage or the 4 generations of Kazekage would come to this wilderness to attack him for no reason, so in his opinion, the mysterious ninja in front of him is most likely a traitorous ninja of the Sand Crypsis who has mastered magnet release. The reason why he guessed that the other party is a traitorous ninja of the Sand Crypsis is because Kurodo feels that he has neither important information nor important items on him, so the Sand Crypsis will never send an elite ninja who has mastered magnet release to assassinate him. What's more, Mai and the Sand Crypsis already have the intention to form an alliance, so there is no reason for the Sand Crypsis to attack Mai's ninja at this time. The other party's target is Hyojin. Considering the huge bounty on Hyojin's back, Kurodo suddenly had this suspicion, because only a huge bounty is worth such a degree of Sand Crypsis's traitorous ninja. He must think that I am in the way, so he wants to get rid of me first, and then make a move on Hyojin. Thinking of this, Kurodo has an idea. In his opinion, if the other party's target is Hyojin, as long as he leads the other party to Hyojin's side, the other party will naturally ignore him and turn to attack Hyojin. At that time, he can easily escape. After all, his strength as a Tokubetsu Jonin is not enough to fight against a powerful ninja who has mastered magnet release. Ninjutsu, fake beast drawing. After quickly drawing 2 ink lions to delay the other party, Kurodo immediately used the body flicker technique and fled towards the bonfire not far away. Chapter 86. After a few leaps, Dingyu arrived in front of the bonfire. He glanced at Hyojin, who was sitting on the ground, gnawing on a rabbit leg, and the corner of his mouth rose, revealing an unfathomable smile, and said in his heart, "Go to hell, idiot!" At this time, the mysterious ninja who used magnet release also rushed to the bonfire. The iron sand turned into countless senbunken, like raindrops, and shot towards Dingyu. Dingyu was shocked and immediately realized. His target is not Hyojin, but me? With Dingyu's strength, he simply can't avoid the rain-like attacks, so even if he dodged, in the blink of an eye, his body was still hit by dozens of senbunken. Compared to shuriken and kunai, the power of senbunken is undoubtedly much weaker, so although Dingyo's body was full of senbunken, he won't die for a while. After staggering a few steps, Ding Wei collapsed beside a big tree. His trembling hand pointed at Kuroto, who was still silently gnawing on the rabbit leg. You are in cahoots with him. At this point, he naturally knew that the other party is likely to be with Hyojin, but he can't figure out how an elite of Sand Crypsis who mastered magnet release would be with Hyojin. At this time, Hyojin stood up, slowly walked in front of Dingyu, and calmly asked, "What order did Danzo give you?" Cough cough. After a short coughing, Dingyu coldly snorted. "You dare to collude with Sand Crypsis, Danzo, Sama will not let you go." As if thinking of something, Hyojin said, "The root ninjas should have a curse mark. It seems that we won't be able to get any useful information out of them. All the root ninjas have a special curse mark called Curse of the Tongue. This curse mark engraved on the tongue can prevent the root ninjas from revealing any information about Danzo." Returning to the campfire, Hyojin continued to eat the rabbit meat, as if everything around him had nothing to do with him. Dingyu looked at Hyojin with a puzzled expression, and then looked at the mysterious magnet release ninja, who had been silent all this time. For a moment, he couldn't figure out the relationship between the two of them. In his eyes, Hyojin doesn't seem to care about the mysterious magnet release ninja at all, and the mysterious magnet release ninja doesn't seem to care about Hyojin's attitude of ignoring him. But no matter what, Dingyu felt the need to spread the news that Hyojin was colluding with the Sand Crypsis, so he mustered the last of his strength and unrolled a scroll. Ninjutsu, fake super beast art. Bam bam bam, following a series of muffled sounds, small and nimble ink birds flew out from the scroll that Dingyu had opened. There were dozens of these ink birds, and in the blink of an eye, they scattered and disappeared into the quiet night. Looking at the ink birds flying away, Dingyu, whose vision was gradually blurring, showed a gratified smile, but suddenly, the smile on his face turned into panic, because he found that all the ink birds were attracted by an invisible force and fell into the hands of Hyojin, and finally turned into a mass of ink. Amidst his terror, an iron spear mercilessly pierced through his head. After eating and wiping the ink on his hands, Hyojin put away the 3 generations Kazakage puppets, and then carried Dingyu's body towards the nearest Mai outpost. Arriving at the outpost, Hyojin said to the Chunin in charge, "I was attacked by a bounty ninja, and in the battle, unfortunately, this root colleague was killed. You send the body back to the village, and report the situation to Naruto-sama." Looking at Dingyu, who has long been dead, the Chunin was embarrassed. In Konoha, even Homasubi and Suijin, who are from noble families, are not willing to deal with the root shinobi, so it can be imagined that civilian ninjas are even more respectful towards the root shinobi. Seeing that the Chunin was a little embarrassed, Hyojin patted him on the shoulder and said with a smile, "Don't worry, just do as I say. If a root ninja asks you, you can tell them everything you know." Hyojin's current identity is not only a Tokubetsu Jonin, but also a member of the Umbu, which is directly under Naruto. For ordinary Chunin in the village, he has the power to temporarily assign tasks. So although the Chunin was very reluctant, he still gritted his teeth and agreed. After a few simple words, Hyojin left the outpost. For Hyojin, it is much better to send Dingyu's body back to the village in an open and above-board manner than to dispose of it quietly. First of all, the fact that he carries a huge bounty on his back is well known to the village's upper echelons, and just today, he was assassinated by a bounty ninja, so pushing Dingyu's death to the bounty ninja is definitely a justifiable reason. Second, it can also be regarded as a release of attitude towards Danzo. As for how Danzo will react, Hyojin doesn't care. Danzo is not the kind of person who will let you go if you give in. The original Jishui was so obedient to him, but the result was that one of his Manjikyu Sharingan was stolen, and he was forced to commit suicide. Therefore, even if Hyojin gives in now, Danzo will not let Hyojin go. Even if Hyojin agreed to Danzo's invitation from the beginning and joined Root, with Danzo's temperament, he will still engrave Hyojin with the seal of Root, because Danzo doesn't trust anyone at all, even his own trusted subordinate. A 2-month vacation is not short, but it is not long either. Hyojin can't spend a lot of time on the road, so he checked the map, chose a remote and rugged route, and then used the magnet release of the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets to fly in the air, and quickly rushed towards the Land of Wind. Hyojin's journey was more daunting than dangerous, and after 2 days, he finally passed through the Land of River and entered the territory of the Land of Wind. The ruins of the ancient city of Roran are located in the vast sea of sand of the Land of Wind. Even with a map, if one is not familiar with the local terrain, it is difficult to find it. Fortunately, Hyojin can fly with the help of magnet release, so his search is much faster than the average ninja. But even so, it took him nearly 10 days to find the ruins of the ancient city of Roran in the vast sea of sand. Looking at the collapsed towers in front of him, Hyojin secretly sighed, "If it weren't for these tilted towers, I really wouldn't have found the dragon vein underground." At such a close distance, Hyojin did not perceive a trace of chakra emitted from the dragon vein, which shows how strong the seal of the 4 generations of the dragon vein is. But for this result, Kuroda had already expected it. If the seal of the 4 generations of the dragon vein was so easy to crack, then the sand crypsis would not have left the dragon vein as a treasure trove. Chapter 87. As soon as he stepped into the Lulan ruins, Hyojin felt an oppressive feeling. The oppressive feeling was not reflected in chakra. Instead, it was reflected in his soul. It was like a normal person who had mistakenly entered a beast's hunting ground. White Eye activate. With a low grunt, Hyojin activated White Eye and walked toward the central tower of the Lulan ruins while carefully observing his surroundings. In his White Eye vision, everything around him was dead silent. There were no signs of life in the entire Lulan ruins, let alone chakra. This is a little strange. Seeing this scene, a trace of doubt surged in Kuroda's heart. No matter how few creatures there were in the desert, there were still quite a number of creatures like snakes, insects, rats, and ants. Logically speaking, with so many buildings left behind in the Lulan ruins, it should be a good place to block the wind and sand. There shouldn't be no signs of life at all. Despite the doubts in his heart, Hyojin did not feel the slightest bit afraid. No matter what was wrong here, it would not be too much of a threat to him now. After all, even if the worst-case scenario happened and the dragon vein chakra went berserk, he was confident that he could escape unscathed. Soon, Hyojin arrived at the place where 4 generations had sealed the dragon vein. It really is a compound sealing technique. With just a glance, Hyojin could tell that the sealing technique that 4 generations had used on the dragon vein was a compound sealing technique that was a combination of many sealing techniques. After getting closer, he squatted down and carefully identified each sealing technique. As he analyzed, he mumbled to himself, "The foundation should still be the 4 symbols seal, but there's also the contract seal mixed in, as well as another sealing technique." After a rough analysis, Hyojin could conclude that 4 generations dragon vein seal was a combination of at least 3 powerful sealing techniques. So far, he could only recognize the 4 symbols seal and the contract seal. As for the 3rd sealing technique, Hyojin had no clue at all. It didn't seem to be a sealing technique of the Maelstrom lineage. At that time, 4 generations probably hadn't inherited Naruto's position, so there were only 2 ways for him to learn sealing technique. One was to learn the Maelstrom lineage from his wife, Jushina, and the other was to learn the Mount Myaboku lineage's sealing technique from his teacher, Jiraiya. At that thought, Hyojin had a guess. The 3rd sealing technique in the Dragon Vein seal was most likely a sealing technique from Mount Wondrous Wood. Standing up and taking a few steps back, Kuroda rested his chin on one hand and pondered for a while, feeling that with his current attainments in sealing techniques, breaking the seal of Yondaime Sama's dragon vein is still possible. After all, the entire dragon vein seal was based on the four symbols seal, and the four symbols seal was the sealing technique he was most familiar with. So, it wasn't impossible to break it by force. However, 4 generations dragon vein seal contained part of the contract seal, which proved that there was a contract between the Lulon Queen's bloodline and the dragon vein. So, to be safe, when breaking the seal of Yondaime Sama's dragon vein, it is best to bring the bloodline of Queen Roran with him. In case the dragon vein chakra goes berserk, it will be difficult to subdue it. But where can I find the Lulon Queen's bloodline? My village, root base. Swoosh, a figure landed and half-knelt in front of Danzo and reported, "Lord Danzo, we have finished examining Ding Yu's body." Leaning? Collecting the magpie to move? Collecting the Rongqi to feed the Mei Bo Gui's bones to the hilt? The half-kneeling root member immediately replied, "There were a total of 37 wounds on Ding Yu's body. The fatal wound was on the head, and because the brain was completely damaged, we were unable to obtain any information." The more Danzo heard, the more gloomy his face became. When he heard the news of Ding Yu's death, his first reaction was that it was definitely Hyojin's doing. But after thinking about it, he wasn't so sure. Because in his heart, Ding Yu's strength should be above Hyojin's. What's more, Ding Yu had carried out many assassination missions, including many Jonin-level targets. Whether it was strength or experience, Ding Yu was ranked among the top in the root base. So, even if Ding Yu wasn't a match for Hyojin, he shouldn't have died without any information. At this time, the root member continued, "During the autopsy, we also found a small amount of iron sand in Ding Yu's body." Danzo's eyes trembled. "Iron sand?" "Yes, the iron sand is very fine, uniform in size, and chakra's conductivity is very good. It seems that under the nourishment of chakra for a long time, it's like..." The root member wanted to say his guess, but he felt that it was too ridiculous, so he didn't know how to report it. Danzo had been in charge of the village's external spies for a long time, so he was one of the most knowledgeable people in Mai. So, he didn't need the root ninja to say it. He already guessed what the root ninja wanted to say. "Sand Crypsis." Danzo suddenly asked, "Did you investigate the Chunin who sent Ding Yu's body back to the village?" The root ninja replied, "Yes, there is no problem with his background, and he has nothing to do with the Hyuga clan." Danzo sternly said, "Search his brain, I want to know everything." The root ninja heard this and said in a low voice, "Danzo-sama, if we do this, the 3 generations, forcibly searching the brain has a lot of hidden dangers, and if not careful, it can cause irreversible damage to the ninja's brain. Therefore, this cruel method of interrogation is usually only used on enemy captives and traitorous ninjas." Danzo impatiently waved his hand. "Do as I say." "Yes." The root ninja had no choice but to respond, and then quietly left. Not long after, the root ninja returned and reported to Danzo, "Danzo-sama, we have interrogated him. The Chunin has nothing to do with Hyojin." Danzo asked, "When Hyojin handed Ding Yu's body to him, did he have any injuries?" The root ninja shook his head and said, "No, in the Chunin's memory, there are no injuries on Hyojin's body." Danzo then asked, "Then where did Hyojin go?" "He doesn't know." Danzo thought to himself, was it Hyojin who killed Ding Yu, or was it the bounty ninja who targeted Hyojin? At this time, the root ninja said weakly, "Danzo-sama, during the interrogation, we made a mistake and damaged part of the Chunin's brain. He may not be able to continue being a ninja in the future." Danzo said coldly, "Just get rid of him." But the root ninja naturally understands the meaning of the word "get rid of," and he has done many such things in the past, but in the past, he only dealt with enemies and traitors. This is the first time he has to deal with an innocent person. Looking at the root ninja in front of him, Danzo coldly said, Don't make this old man repeat it twice. Chapter 88. Kusanagi Village, Mission Center. A middle-aged woman asked with a smile, "Guest, what commission do you need?" Hyojin replied politely, "I want to find someone, but I don't know her whereabouts, so I want to entrust the ninjas of your village to help me find her." "Looking for someone, no problem, please fill in the information here." Taking the information, Hyojin glanced at it slightly. The information required to be filled in is only the information of the person Hyojin wants to find, as well as Hyojin's commission amount. As for Hyojin's own information, there is no requirement to fill in. Seeing this, Hyojin secretly nodded. The Kusanagi village is not large, and if they want to compete with other villages for commission tasks, they can only relax the requirements. This is also one of the important reasons why Hyojin chose to come to the Kusanagi village. After filling in the information he knows about the descendants of Queen Roran one by one, Hyojin thought for a while, and wrote 1,000,000 ryo in the column of commission amount. Looking at the information handed back by Hyojin, the middle-aged woman was taken aback. 1,000,000 ryo? This is the commission money for an A-level mission. Will you encounter other ninjas for this mission? Hyojin smiled and said, "The person I want to find is likely to be in the territory of the Land of Wind. Just in case, I hope that your village can assign an excellent ninja to accept my commission." Seeing that it is a big business, the middle-aged woman's eyes narrowed into slits. "Guest, you can rest assured, our Kusanagi village is the strongest shinobi village outside of the 5 great shinobi villages. There are many strong ninjas in the village. We will definitely meet your requirements." Hyojin smiled slightly. Among the small shinobi villages, although the Kusanagi village is not weak, it is definitely not the strongest shinobi village outside of the 5 great shinobi villages. In Hyojin's opinion, only the Hidden Rain village deserves this title. If it weren't for the geographical location of the Hidden Rain village being sandwiched between the 3 great shinobi villages of Mai, Sand Crypsis, and Rock Village, the Hidden Rain village would have been promoted to the 6th great shinobi village in the Hanzo era. A few hours later, the 4 ninjas arrived in front of Hyojin. One of them looked up and down at Hyojin and said, "My name is Long Lan, a jonin from the Kusanagi village. This time, my team and I will be responsible for your request." Hyojin smiled and said, "You all can call me Mr. Mu. I'll be entrusting this task to you all." Hyojin was quite satisfied with the 4 ninjas in front of him. Their leader was a jonin named Dragon Orchid. Although he didn't look old, the chakra reaction in his body was very strong. Even among the jonins, he was at a relatively good level. The other 3 ninjas were also at the level of Chunin, and they didn't seem to be mediocre. After leaving the Kusanagi village, a Chunin said to Hyojin, "Don't worry, Dragon Orchid-sama is one of the best experts in our village. A simple task like finding someone is a piece of cake for him." Hyojin smiled and said, "It seems that I'm very lucky to be able to hire you all." Another Chunin laughed and said, "I'm not afraid of scaring you, but our Dragon Orchid-sama is a master with a bounty of 10,000,000 ryo. Even if you really encounter the ninjas of the Sand Crypsis this time, you won't be in any danger." When Hyojin heard this, he carefully looked at Dragon Orchid, who was at the front of the team. He didn't expect that this jonin would also carry a bounty on his back, and the amount is not small. In fact, this time Hyojin came to the Kusanagi village to commission a task. He was also helpless. After the ancient city of Roran was abandoned, the people of Roran lived a nomadic life of chasing oases and watergrass, so they don't have a fixed residence at all. It's too difficult for Hyojin to find them in a mere month and a half. Therefore, Hyojin came up with the idea of finding a shinobi village to commission a task. The Sand Crypsis and Mai are obviously not suitable. Hyojin was the first to exclude them, and then the remaining Rock, Cloud, and Mist villages were also excluded one after another, because they either have a grudge or are too far away from the Land of Wind. The remaining shinobi villages that are relatively close to the Land of Wind are only the Rain Village and the Grass Village. The Rain Village is currently the headquarters of the Akatsuki organization. It's like a dragon's pool and a tiger's den. Hyojin doesn't want to find trouble for himself, so after disguising himself, he took a detour and came to the Land of Grass. Hiring a grass ninja can get the intelligence support of the Grass Village, and with the intelligence power of a shinobi village, it's much easier to find the descendants of the Queen of Roran. Land of Water. Sasori sat on a stone, panting while taking out a water bottle. After drinking a mouthful of water, he got up and looked at the battlefield in front of him. The corners of his mouth couldn't help but rise slightly. At this moment, in front of him, countless white bone spears broke out of the ground like a bamboo forest, covering the ground. Looking from a distance, it looks like a white bone forest. In the middle of the bone forest, there is a corpse lying on the ground. The corpse is also covered with sharp bone spurs, looking like a monster. Slowly walking to the side of the corpse, Scorpion shook open a scroll, and then carefully sealed the corpse in the scroll. At this time, another figure appeared. Sasori turned his head and said coldly, "Orochimaru, you are late." Orochimaru smiled coldly and said, "It seems that the patriarch of the Kagaya clan is only SOSO." The situation on the battlefield surprised Orochimaru. He really didn't expect that Sasori would be able to easily deal with the patriarch of the Kagaya clan. Sasori put away the scroll and said, "These guys of the Kagaya clan are all lunatics. If it weren't for my poison, it wouldn't have been so easy to deal with them." Orochimaru looked at the bone spears that broke out of the ground with interest and said with a smile, "You seem to have collected a lot of high-quality puppet materials in the turmoil of the Mist Village." Sasori glanced at Orochimaru and said, "Aren't you the same? The child in the dungeon was taken away by you, right? I thought I hid it from you." With an indifferent smile, Orochimaru said, "It's time to leave. The turmoil in the Mist Village seems to have subsided." Sasori shook his head and said, "Stay a few more days. The opportunity to hunt a Kekai Genkai like this doesn't come often." Orochimaru pondered for a moment, then nodded and said, "Well, I'll stay here for a few more days." Orochimaru, who has found an orphan of the Kagaya clan, has no interest in staying in the Land of Water anymore, but since Sasori and he are partners, and since Sasori insisted on not leaving, he has no choice but to stay in the Land of Water for a few more days. Chapter 89. Orochimaru, wearing an ordinary kimono, was walking alone in the major towns of the Land of Water. Because of Sasori, he didn't leave the Land of Water as planned, and because there is almost no enemy in the Land of Water that needs him and Sasori to deal with, so he didn't stay with Sasori. The turmoil in the Mist Village has been going on for a long time, and this turmoil almost exhausted all the vitality of the Mist Village. Several famous families in the Mist Village, such as Kagaya and Yukichi, were destroyed one after another, and the clansmen with Kekkei Genkai either died or fled, scattered everywhere. Fortunately, the Land of Water is located in a remote corner, and the neighboring Mai and Kumo are in a confrontation, so they don't have the energy to care about other things. Otherwise, whether the Mist Village can survive or not is unknown. Suddenly, a strong man with a sharp blade blocked Orochimaru's way and said fiercely, "Hand over the money." Orochimaru stretched out his slender tongue and wiped it slightly on his lips, and said in a hoarse voice, "An idiot who can't even feel the danger, it's really sad." The strong man was furious. "You want to die." Clang! Before the strong man's voice fell, the sharp blade in his hand slipped from his fingers and fell to the ground. Lowering his head with difficulty, he suddenly discovered that a green snake that was only as thick as a finger had bitten his throat. Orochimaru passed by the strong man from beginning to end. His hand didn't leave his pocket. The strong man fell to the ground, no breath left his body. After wandering in the Land of Water for so long, There are very few people who dare to find trouble with Orochimaru, because even the weakest mist ninjas can feel the cold aura emanating from Orochimaru's body, which makes it impossible for strangers to get close to him. Only a pure civilian murderer like the strong man would foolishly come forward to die. From this, it can be seen that the turmoil in the Land of Water is not only limited to the ninja class, the lives of the civilians have also been seriously affected. The whole Land of Water can be said to be in chaos. After turning a corner, Orochimaru suddenly stopped. His eyes were attracted by a pile of rubbish in the corner. In front of the garbage dump, a ragged child was squatting on the ground, tearing up a small ball of black bread and distributing it to a few thin stray cats. The small stray cats meowed and were extremely intimate with the child. What a nice chakra. Orochimaru licked his lips and walked slowly to the garbage dump. The sudden approach of Orochimaru made the child feel afraid. He curled up and wanted to hide in the corner, but when he thought of the little wild cats under his feet, he gritted his teeth and opened his arms to protect the little wild cats. Orochimaru looked at the skinny child in front of him, then glanced at the bread crumbs the child fed to the stray cats, and asked, "What's your name?" The child carefully replied, "My name is Bai." Staring at Bai's pure and clean eyes, Orochimaru shook his head, then turned around and left. The child himself was as thin as a stick, but he still shared the remaining food with the little wild cats. Even if he has a nice chakra, such a kind child is not suitable to be a ninja. So with just a glance, Orochimaru dispelled the idea of taking the child away. But after taking a few steps, he suddenly stopped, because he recalled that child named Shigo. Yugo was a child who could absorb nature energy, and it was precisely because of this child that Orochimaru added a new research project called Curse Seal to his research project. Looking back at Haku, Orochimaru murmured, "Such a pure child, maybe he can bear that kind of power." At this moment, a figure landed beside Orochimaru. He was none other than Orochimaru's partner, Sasori. Sasori glanced at the thin Haku in the corner, then turned to Orochimaru and said, "Let's go, the person I'm looking for has appeared." Orochimaru smiled and said, "Are you sure you're looking for a person, not a corpse?" Sasori gritted his teeth and said, "I will turn him into a corpse." Orochimaru rarely saw Sasori so angry, so he pretended to be casual and asked, "Who are you looking for? I don't have the time to follow you around." "A ninja of your land of wind." With the help of Kusanagi, after a month, Hyojin finally found the traces of the Rorin survivors. Over a sand dune, Rorin pointed to the conspicuous oasis in the distance and said to Hyojin, "The Rorin survivors you are looking for are there." Hyojin looked over and saw a circle of caravans parked outside the oasis. Sparse figures were coming and going in the workshop, some were fetching water from the oasis, some were taking care of camels and sheep, and some were making a fire to cook. Frowning, Hyojin wondered, why are there so few people? The entire convoy next to the oasis is only 200 or 300 people, which is far less than Kuroto's expectation. In his opinion, the number of Rorin survivors may not be that many, but it shouldn't be as few as 200 or 300. A local guide found by the Kusanagi quickly explained to Suijin, since the Rorin city was abandoned, these Rorin survivors have lost their livelihood, some have left, and some have died, this is all that is left. Hyojin asked again, even if there is no town, their life should not be so miserable, right? Just as the guide wanted to explain, he suddenly saw something, so he pointed to the distance. Look! Hyojin looked in the direction of the guide's finger and saw 2 Sand Crypsis ninjas coming to the oasis and negotiating with the Rorin survivors there. Both sides seemed to be a bit unhappy. After a quarrel, the 2 Sand Crypsis ninjas left the oasis and gradually disappeared in the sand. Hyojin asked, "Why are the Sand Crypsis ninjas here?" The guide sighed and said, "I heard that the Sand Crypsis has been collecting taxes from these Rorin survivors. The 2 Sand Crypsis ninjas should be here to collect taxes. Hyojin pondered a little and understood the intention of the Sand Crypsis. How much tax can a convoy of 200 or 300 people collect? The Sand Crypsis did this, firstly, to use this as an excuse to monitor the Roran survivors. Secondly, it may be that they want to use economic pressure to make the Roran survivors completely submit to the Sand Crypsis village. In this way, the Sand Crypsis can legitimately occupy the Dragon Vein. Hyojin felt that these little tricks of the Sand Crypsis were very normal. After all, it would be really abnormal if the Sand Crypsis did not care about such a huge source of chakra like the Dragon Vein. The Kusanagi ninja Longlon asked, "Mr. Mu, do you need to go and confirm the person you are looking for?" Hyojin shook his head. "No need." Longlon said, "In that case, what about our mission this time?" Chapter 90. Tetsuya accepted the rest of the money and asked Hyojin to sign the letter of entrustment. Then, he left with the ninja and the guide hired by the ninja. During the whole process, he didn't say a word. It seemed that he didn't care about Hyojin's search for the Roran survivors at all. In fact, in this month of contact, Tetsuya, as a jonin, had long discovered that Hyojin, who was under the alias of Mr. Mu, was a ninja. After all, an ordinary person who has been running in the desert for a month, even if the body is strong, the spirit will be tired, but Kuroto is the same as them, not showing the slightest sign of fatigue. This alone shows that Kuroto has mastered the method of using chakra. As a ninja from a small ninja village, Tetsuya had seen all kinds of strange commissions. He even received commissions from ninjas from the 5 great ninja villages to assassinate ninjas from the same village. So, he had long understood that the less he knew about things that had nothing to do with him, the better it was for him. Hyojin was very satisfied with the ninja's self-awareness. If the Kusanagi shinobi doesn't get to the bottom of the mission, or shows signs of inquiring about the purpose of searching for the Roran survivors, then Kuroto can only kill them. After sending away the ninja, Hyojin, who was hiding on the sand dune, carefully observed the Roran survivors in the oasis in the distance. Soon, his eyes fell on a red-haired woman. The woman looked about 20 years old, holding a baby in her arms, and her face was full of sadness. Hyojin said to himself with some uncertainty, "Is it her?" In his memory, the last queen of Roran was 4 or 5 years older than Kakashi, who was with 4 generations at that time. Hyojin and Kakashi were in the same generation, so the last queen should be 4 or 5 years older than Hyojin, which was about 20 years old. The age matched, the hair color also matched. In the team of 200 or 300 people, the only one that met the criteria was the woman, so Suijin finally identified the woman holding the baby as the last queen of Roran Kingdom. How pathetic! After sighing with emotion, Hyojin took out the scroll and summoned the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets. Now was not the time to come into contact with the Lulan Queen, because if something happened to the Dragon Vein while he was traveling, then it was very likely that the village would suspect him. Therefore, this 2-month trip was just his preliminary preparation. He had 2 purposes. The first was to confirm what kind of sealing technique the 4 generations had used on the Dragon Vein. The second was to confirm Lulan Queen's exact location. Now that both of his goals have been achieved, he only needs to leave behind 3 generations of Kazekage puppets and let 3 generations of Kazekage puppets lurk and track the convoy of the Roran survivors, so that he can grasp the position of the Roran Queen in real time. As for himself, he could openly return to the village and clear his name. Then, he could think of a way to sneak out of the village and steal the Dragon's Vein without anyone knowing. Bang! Suddenly, a cloud of smoke rose. When the white smoke dissipated, the lazy figure of the one-eyed venom snake was revealed. Hyojin was slightly stunned. Only Orochimaru could send him a telepathic message, and Orochimaru hadn't contacted him for a long time, so he was very surprised by Orochimaru's sudden message. Taking the scroll in the one-eyed venom snake's mouth and unfolding it, Hyojin's face suddenly sank. What a lingering ghost! There was not much content on the scroll, just a warning message. Orochimaru told him that his whereabouts had been detected by Scorpion, and that Scorpion was coming to the country of wind. These days, in order to find the Rorin survivors, Hyojin met a lot of people of all kinds. Among these people, there might be someone who saw through Hyojin's disguise. But it didn't matter now, because he had achieved his goal and didn't need to stay in the country of wind anymore. After thinking for a while, Hyojin took out a scroll from his body and handed it to the one-eyed venom snake. This scroll recorded the information of the Umbu members that Hyojin collected on a daily basis, including the Umbu squad that died in the conflict with Cloud Village. When he traded the artificial tailed beast scroll with Orochimaru, one of the two requests made by Orochimaru was that Hyojin should use the advantage of the Byakugan to collect information on the Umbu members. After so long, Hyojin should also give Orochimaru an explanation. After all, this time Orochimaru's message saved him a lot of trouble, and he had to return the favor. My village, Naruto's office. 3 generations were looking at the village outside the window with their hands behind their back. Danzo was sitting on the side, leaning on a cane. Talking to a cripple? Waving. Apart from Hyojin, the other 3 people of class 11 were standing in front of Naruto's desk with a nervous look on their faces. After a while, 3 generations turned around and asked the 3 people of class 11, "Have you finished looking at the documents?" Kakashi and the other 2 nodded. 3 generations asked, "What do you think, is it possible that Hyojin did this?" Guy was the first to stand up and said, "Naruto-sama, Kuroto will never do anything to his companions from the same village." Putting the photo of Uchiha's corpse and the relevant documents back on Naruto's desk, Kakashi said, "I also believe in Kuroto." When he thought about how Hyojin led his team to return to the valley to face hundreds of Cloud ninjas in order to save him, and how he fought with Cloud's Jinchuriki in the country of hot water for the sake of the village, Kakashi felt that Hyojin would never betray the village. Even if the root ninja in the photo was really killed by Hyojin, he deserved to die. As soon as Jishue saw the iron sand mentioned in the document, he guessed that the root ninja must have been killed by Hyojin, because he saw Hyojin controlling the Kazekage puppets of 3 generations. But he had promised Hyojin that no matter what Hyojin did with Danzo, he must keep it a secret, so he didn't say anything to the 3 generations. Humph! Danzo, who was sitting on the side, snorted coldly, expressing his dissatisfaction. 3 generations sighed and said, "Hyojin is partly responsible for Uchiha's death. I announce that he will be suspended from his position in the Umbu. Kakashi said calmly, "Naruto-sama, Hyojin is my team member. If he is responsible, then as the captain, am I also responsible?" Danzo said coldly, "Last time, your team, 11 concealed the truth, and this time your team, 11 members are suspected of assassinating a ninja from the same village. I suggest that all members of Team 11 be suspended from their positions in the Umbu." In order to appease Danzo, 3 generations nodded. All members of Team 11 will be suspended from their positions in the Umbu. Chapter 91. After the 3 members of the Team 11 left Naruto's office, the Danzo leaned on a stick. 9 swallows? Hanjie Kagemono? Wolf? Kagemono? Now Yupao? Kagemono? Sheathed Kagemono? Play? 3 generations shook his head. Things are not irreparable yet. Have you considered what kind of losses the village will suffer if they make the first move? After a slight pause, Danzo continued, "Leave it to me, I will minimize the losses." Sandaime took a puff of the cigarette in his mouth. "Isn't the lesson from the Hidden Mist Rebellion enough? I will be responsible for Uchiha's affairs from now on, you don't need to interfere anymore." Hearing 3 generations mention the turmoil of the Mist Village, Danzo was speechless for a while. The turmoil of the Mist Village almost destroyed the Mist Village's reputation as one of the 5 great shinobi villages. Not only did the village suffer a great loss in strength, but even the country of water fell into turmoil. Therefore, everyone knows that such a tragedy must not happen in Mai. After thinking for a while, Danzo added, Uchiha Jishue cannot be allowed to stay in the Umbu any longer. His strength is no longer below yours or mine. If he completely falls to Uchiha's side, you will be in great danger. Hokage-sama nodded. The reason why 3 generations readily agreed to Danzo's proposal and suspended all the members of Team 11 is also because of their fear of Jishue. Because Jishue helped Hyojin recognize the results of the battle in the valley, 3 generations and Danzo both overestimated Jishue's combat power. Coupled with Jishue's Manjikyu Sharingan and Koto Amatsukami, the threat of Jishue suddenly increased by several levels. At this point, whether it was the 3 generations or the Danzo, none of them had the confidence to defeat Jishue in a one-on-one match. Naruto's Black Ops had the right to enter and exit the Naruto building freely. Therefore, if Jishue had any ill intentions, the 3 generations would likely suffer a fatal sneak attack when they were unprepared. Although the 3 generations did not think that Jishue would betray the village, as Naruto, he could not take the risk. A week later, Hyojin returned to the village before his 2-month holiday expired. When he returned to the village, he found out that he had been suspended. However, he was not surprised by this. Moreover, for him, the position in the black operation was dispensable. In fact, from the very beginning, he didn't have any plans to continue looking forward to this in the dark. Even if the 3 generations didn't suspend his position, he would find a suitable opportunity to resign from the black operation. Because of the Uzumaki's sealing technique, the internal layout of the Naruto building, the details of the guards in the confidential database, and the information of the members of the black operation, etc., he has already obtained them one by one. Even on his resume, his file has been added to the Umbu, which is directly under Naruto, so there is no need to continue to stay in the black operation. It must be known that although the Umbu has many privileges, they are also subject to many restrictions. For example, ordinary Mai ninjas, as long as they are not assigned by the village, they can accept any task at the mission center, and then naturally go out to carry out the task. But the Umbu can't because the tasks of the Umbu are assigned by Naruto, and their every move is subject to Naruto's restrictions. Wherever they go, what they do, all have to be reported to Naruto. This may not be important for ordinary Mai ninjas, but for Hyojin, it is very troublesome, so the status of Umbu has more disadvantages than advantages for him. But why did they suspend the entire Team 11? Thinking of this, Hyojin faintly felt that the Konoha's higher-ups may not be targeting him, they may just be using the death of the Root Ninja as an excuse to target someone in Team 11. And this person is undoubtedly Jishue. After pondering for a while, Hyojin put these thoughts aside. As long as the peace talks between the Konoha and Kumo village are not finalized, nothing will happen to Uchiha, so what Hyojin needs to do now is not to cause trouble everywhere, but to improve his strength while others are not paying attention to him. In the shinobi world, in the final analysis, strength speaks the loudest. In the next few days, Hyojin met with the 3 members of Team 11 and walked around the village to let everyone know that he has returned to the village, then he stayed at home and didn't go anywhere. The Danzo didn't send anyone to monitor him these days, and he didn't bother to find out why. On the 7th day after returning to the village, Kuroto officially started the artificial-tailed beast plan. First of all, he needs to make a shell for his artificial-tailed beast. The material for the shell is the purple clay recorded in the scroll of the artificial-tailed beast. These days, Kuroto has done several experiments in private and found that the purple clay is indeed a material that has a strong isolation ability against chakra, so it is very suitable to make the shell of the artificial-tailed beast. As for the technique, Kuroda has already memorized the technique recorded in the scroll of the artificial-tailed beast, so the probability of a problem occurring is close to zero. Byakugan, open. Glancing around the house again to confirm that no one is spying on him, Hyojin took out the scroll containing the purple clay and took out all the purple clay sealed in it. Looking at the pile of purple clay in front of him, Kuroda thought for a while and decided to shape the body of the artificial-tailed beast into a simple round shape. Choosing a round shape is not because he wants it to be simple, but because the simpler the shape, the more stable the structure will be. After all, the artificial-tailed beast is just like a battery for him. If he makes the shape too flashy and reduces the stability of the artificial-tailed beast, it would be a waste of time. Having made up his mind, Kuroda started to engrave the technique on the purple clay bit by bit. Engraving the technique must be done in one go, neither can it be paused halfway, nor can there be any mistakes. Otherwise, there will be obvious flaws in the artificial-tailed beast's body, and it will become unstable. In the worst case, the artificial-tailed beast's body will directly explode when it contains the chakra source. Because this process is crucial, when engraving the technique, Hyojin directly opened the Tenseigan. Through the unparalleled insight of the Tenseigan, he carefully controls his chakra and increases the precision of the engraving technique to the highest level. When people focus on something, time always passes quickly. Glancing at the morning light outside the window, Hyojin closed the Tenseigan. After a sleepless night of engraving the technique, Kuroda finally completed the shaping of the artificial-tailed beast's body. Fortunately, he chose a simple round shape. Otherwise, even with the help of the Tenseigan, a single night is not enough for him to complete such a large workload. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.